so hang tight. Now I'm going to go live. And we are live. So I think, Yadenia, does that look correct?
I'm actually in the live and it's not live yet.
There's
On my end is live.
Okay, now it is.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, then I'm kicking it to Steve Quinn. Thank you.
Great. Welcome to the 2021 Texas High School Mock Trial State Championships. We have two teams, Team B as prosecution, Team M as defense, and we're about to start the trial of this matter. Our presiding judge today is Justice Lana Myers of the 5th Court of Appeals in Dallas, and she is also an ex-chair of the mock trial competition and has been involved in mock trial for longer than either of us wants to admit. I'm going to turn this over to Judge Myers at this time, and we can get started. Congratulations on both teams. Let's have a good trial.
Thank you, Steve. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Great to see all of you. I think that since we're in a virtual trial normally, and if we were in person, we would be standing at certain times during proceedings out of the respect for the court and the jury. But since it is virtual, we will not be doing that. And I'd like to swear all of the witnesses in at this time. So if you would please turn on your video and raise your right hand, I'll swear all of you in. All right. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Yes, Your
I do.
Honor.
Just a few reminders on logistics. There'll be no communication allowed between competing team members and others in the Zoom courtroom until the trial is concluded. Only people associated with the participating teams and officials associated with hosting are permitted in the Zoom courtroom. Make sure you're not wearing anything that could associate you to a school or team name, and make sure that nothing is in the background of your cameras that could associate you similarly. Confirm the presence of, do we have timekeepers? I guess we'll see them in the chat. Courtroom artist. Do we have courtroom artists? No?
We do not.
Okay. And be sure to put all electronic devices, cell phones, laptops, iPads, etc. on silent mode. And please refrain from answering phone calls or text messages or using any electronic device during the course of the round. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll call the case, the state of TEXOMA versus SYLVESTRIS DIARDI. And my name is Justice Lana Myers, your presiding judge today. I think everybody else has the scoring judges are already have their videos off and are on mute. And they should remain off until the trial ends. Everyone should also have video set to hide all non-video participants. That means only the people on the screen right now should be the advocates and me. All right, are the attorneys ready to make your appearances for any pretrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor. We do have a few pretrial matters.
Go ahead.
May we assume I apologize, Your Honor. There was a little bit of lag. May we assume all judges have a copy of the case materials and that these case materials include stipulations, authentic witness fact statements, and exhibits?
Yes, you may.
May we assume that all exhibits are automatically published to the jury as they're entered into evidence?
You may.
May we assume that once an exhibit is published to the jury, each juror may look at the individual copy of that exhibit they have in front of them?
Yes, you may.
May we assume all stipulations have been read into evidence?
Yes, you may.
May all bench conferences be held constructively?
Yes.
In between each witness's testimony, may we have 30 seconds or so to switch places with co-counsel and change our Zoom profile names?
Yes, you may.
May our witnesses be given the same time as well?
Yes.
After the last witness's testimony, may we have about a minute to prepare for closing arguments?
Yes, you may.
May I reserve up to 1 minute of closing argument for rebuttal?
Yes, you may.
Lastly, Your Honor, may we introduce ourselves?
Let me go to Team M. Do you have anything to add for pretrial matters, Mr. Reed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Excuse me, Your Honor. May we request that witnesses keep a copy of their fact statement nearby for potential impeachment purposes?
Yes, they may.
Your Honor, if a witness does not have a hard copy of an exhibit, may we show our own over the camera and presume we are showing it outside of the presence of the jury?
Yes, you may.
Your Honor, according to stipulations 7, 8, and 9, exhibits 1, 2, and 8 respectively are considered admissible at trial. The defense would like to offer these into evidence now.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, those exhibits are admitted.
No further pretrial matters, Your Honor, just that we be allowed to introduce ourselves.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reed. We'll start with the attorneys for Team B. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Samantha Merrill. I'll be conducting the direct examination of Sundu Leo, the cross-examination of SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, and delivering the closing arguments.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Grace Ross. I will be delivering the opening statement, the direct examination of Serval Arata, and the cross-examination of Kip Manuel.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Ian Mitchell, and I'll be delivering the direct examination of Pardalis Jacobitis and the cross-examination of Chaus Namir.
Our witnesses as well, Your Honor.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Ty Merrill, and I am Serval Arata.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Anna Kate Owens, and I am Pardalis Jacobitis.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Colin Merrill, and I'm Sundu Leo.
The state is ready to proceed, Your Honor.
All right. All right, could I have the attorneys for Team M, please introduce yourselves.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Vincent Reed, and I will be directing Chaus and Meyer, crossing Sundu Leo, and delivering today's closing argument.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Zoe Gameros. I will be directing Kip Manuel, crossing Pardalis Jacobitis, and delivering today's opening statement.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Abby Chapman, and I'll be directing SYLVESTRIS DIARDI and crossing Serval Arata.
And Your Honor, may our witnesses introduce themselves as well?
Yes, they may.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Isabel Gameros, and I am Chasna Meyer.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Arden Carruthers, and I am Kip Manuel.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Siobhan Crummy, and I am SYLVESTRIS DIARDI.
All right. Thank you. All right. Is the state ready to present your opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. May we have a few seconds to get in place and change our Zoom profile name?
Yes, you may.
The prosecution is ready to proceed, Your Honor.
All right. Let me go ahead and put this on speaker view. All right. Go ahead and present your opening statement.
May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. For Barry Bazaar, April 30th, 2020 began like any other day in his home on the beautiful animal park known as the Big Cat Temple. Bazaar owned this commercial park, which sat on the serene shoreline of the TEXOMA Bay. This park offered many amenities to paying customers, but perhaps the most interesting attractions were the 15 big cats, lions, tigers, and leopards. There were also separate living quarters for each of Bazaar's 3 trusted employees: Serval Arata, the sanctuary records keeper, Kip Manuel, who is responsible for caring for the park and cleaning the cages, and SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, whose main job was to acquire supplies and feed the hungry cats. There was also a journalist filming a documentary on the sanctuary. Her name is Pardalis Jacobaitis. She lived at the park and constantly roamed it, filming videos of everyone's business. The only break from the reality TV came on Thursday evenings when Pardalis and her crew left for their weekly night out on the town. Ordinarily, the sanctuary staff could relax on Thursday evenings, but not this Thursday. The evidence will show that beginning that morning at breakfast, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI was setting the table for murder. The evidence will show that SYLVESTRIS ensured that all of her coworkers would be out completing long supply runs that evening so that she would be alone with Mr. Bazaar for hours. The evidence will further demonstrate that Ms. DIARDI was in serious debt and that Mr. Bazaar was threatening to cut her completely out of his will. Today, you will learn that Ms. DIARDI was the last person to see Mr. Bazaar alive. Mr. Bazaar literally disappeared that night while he was alone with Ms. DIARDI. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Grace Ross, and I, along with my co-counsel, Ian Mitchell and Samantha Merrill, represent the state of TEXOMA. The defendant, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, is charged with murder, and as she sits, she enjoys the presumption of innocence. She is innocent until proven guilty, but during today's trial, you will learn how and why the defendant murdered Mr. Bazaar, including the horrific manner in which she disposed of Mr. Bazaar's body. Now, under TEXOMA law, in order to prove murder, we are required to demonstrate 5 elements to you beyond a reasonable doubt. These are that on or about April 30th, 2020, in Landry County, TEXOMA, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Mr. Bazaar. Now, I submit to you that there will be no dispute about the first 3 elements in this list. So the only thing you have to decide is whether the defendant intentionally or knowingly caused Mr. Bazaar's death. Now, notice what the law does not require us to prove. We don't have to prove to you how the defendant murdered Mr. Bazaar, only that she caused his death. It's stipulated in this case that Mr. Bazaar is presumed dead, so the only thing you must decide today is whether the defendant intentionally or knowingly caused his death. Now, knowingly here means that Ms. DIARDI caused Mr. Bazaar's death and that it wasn't a mistake or an accident. It's that simple. Today, you will also receive a definition of reasonable doubt, but I suspect that you won't need anyone's help in determining what it means for you to be convinced of something. You know when you are convinced about the facts you assess, and it's our job to provide those facts to you. So the state of TEXOMA will call 3 witnesses. First, Serval Arata, the sanctuary records keeper. She'll tell you that at the time of Mr. Bazaar's disappearance, Ms. DIARDI was in serious debt, and that Mr. Bazaar was threatening to cut her completely out of his will. Next, you'll hear from Pardalis Jacobaitis, the filmmaker. She'll tell you that she had incriminating video evidence of DIARDI stored in her shed, and she'll tell you about a tragic fire that destroyed her shed and all of the video evidence within. She'll tell you that this fire occurred shortly after Mr. Bazaar's disappearance and before the sanctuary staff were able to report it to the police. You'll be able to decide who caused this fire. Finally, you'll hear from Detective Sundaleo. He'll tell you all about his investigation and what led him to charge the defendant with murder. I expect you'll also hear from 3 defense witnesses, Chaus Namir, Kip Manuel, and SYLVESTRIS DIARDI. Chaus Namir operated a marina next to the sanctuary, and he and Kip will tell you about what they observed that evening. Pay close attention to all 5 of the witnesses' testimonies and weigh them against the defendant's self-serving story. The defendant, whose main job was to butcher large carcasses of meat and feed them to the hungry cats. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only one person in this trial that had the motive, means, and opportunity to murder Barry Bazaar. At the end of today's trial, my co-counsel will return to ask you to deliver the only verdict that is consistent with the evidence, that SYLVESTRIS DIARDI is guilty of murder. Thank you.
Thank you.
Opening, Your Honor.
5 seconds.
Yes, you may proceed.
May it please the court. Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. As a child, I loved magic. Magicians, magic shows, magic tricks. I loved breaking down the tricks, trying to figure out the illusion, looking beyond the smoke and mirrors. But every time I figured out how the awe-inspiring trick was performed, the magic lost its power. The illusion dulled. Because the facade was just that. In order to prevail in this case today, the prosecution will have to make you believe in magic. But just like I learned when I was a little kid, magic isn't real. The defendant is not a magician. The evidence will show she is just an ordinary woman under attack. As you already know, my name is Zoe Gameros, and along with my law partners, we proudly represent the defendant today, Ms. SYLVESTRIS DIARDI. The evidence will show Ms. DIARDI worked at the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary for Mr. Barry Bizarre, who she viewed as a mentor and a father. Mr. Bizarre is eccentric and perhaps marches to his own beat, but the two of them have always had a healthy relationship. So much so that Mr. Bizarre named Ms. DIARDI his primary beneficiary to continue taking care of the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary if anything were to happen to him. The prosecution alleges Ms. DIARDI murdered Mr. Bizarre, apparently for the burden and upkeep of a failing cat sanctuary. In order to prevail in this case, the prosecution must prove their theory beyond a reasonable doubt. Members of the jury, we expect that today the judge will tell you that a reasonable doubt is a doubt that will make you hesitate to act in the most important of your own affairs. We expect that there will be numerous reasonable doubts for you based upon the prosecution's case today, which lacks concrete evidence to support the crime alleged. The evidence will show that there is no proof of Mr. Bizarre's death, no body, no physical evidence of death. We expect that not one witness will be able to truly tell you that Mr. Bizarre is even dead. As I previously stated, the prosecution plans to present 3 witnesses today. Listen very carefully to their testimony as it will reveal personal motivation, selfish bias, and lackluster, inadequate police work. The evidence will show Pardalis Jacobidis is making a film about this case, and a conviction sells. The evidence will show Detective Sundaleo was called out to investigate a fire, followed a rabbit trail with 0 forensic evidence to support it, and turned a missing persons case into a murder case before looking at all possible leads. Next, the evidence will show that Serval Arata has been jealous of Ms. DIARDI and Mr. Bizarre's relationship, almost since it began, and stands to inherit the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary, Arata's dream if Ms. DIARDI is convicted today. Now, as the defendant, Ms. DIARDI does not have to prove anything today. She doesn't even have to testify, but she will, because she is so certain that through her testimony, you will further understand the truth. Ms. DIARDI will tell you that she was very close with Mr. Bizarre. He showed her kindness and compassion, and she will never forget that. She will also say that simple tasks like feeding the cats at the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary could be a real burden. Kit Manul will tell you about Pardalis Jacobidis' effect on the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary, and also about the fact that Mr. Bizarre is fully capable of taking last-minute unannounced boat trips. Chausna Meyer will tell you about Detective Sundaleo's investigation at the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary, and also detail Ms. DIARDI's whereabouts on the night of April 30th. At the end of today, you will be asked if Ms. DIARDI murdered Mr. Barry Bizarre. Follow the real evidence. Don't be tricked by a little bit of magic, an illusion. Find the defendant not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Will the prosecution now please call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Serval Arata.
Mr. Arata?
Eddie.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
I'm Serval Arata.
And could you explain to the jury in a little bit of detail, what kind of business is the Big Cat Temple?
Well, it's a sanctuary for big cats. We would take them from families who didn't want them anymore, or rescue them from the wild and give them a place to stay.
What was your job there?
I was in charge of paperwork, scheduling, most of the administrative stuff. You know, a lot of documents. I was Barry's personal assistant after all.
Did you live on the premises of the sanctuary?
I did.
Who else lived and worked at the sanctuary?
Well, there's Kip Manuel. He was a handyman, in charge of cleaning the cat cages and the Cheetahs Express. And there was SYLVESTRIS DIARDI. She was in charge of the big cats and the entire staff.
SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, the defendant?
Yeah, the defendant.
What was her job?
Well, she was in charge of the big cats, supplies, feeding. She would grind up huge carcasses of meat with a bunch of big knives and give it to the cats. And then she was dispose of all the waste.
Mr. Arata, how well do you know Barry Bazaar?
Me and Barry were like family, He was my father, and I feel like I was his only real friend, We were very, very close.
Do you know if he had a will?
He did.
As of Thursday, April 30th, 2020, do you know who the primary beneficiary of his will was?
SYLVESTRIS DIARDI.
Mr. Arata, when was the last day that you saw Mr. Bazaar alive?
That would be Thursday, April 30th, 2020.
Do you remember that day?
I do.
Well, how do you know that it was a Thursday?
Well, Pardalis Jacobaitis, she was a filmer doing some sort of documentary. She would always take her crew out on Thursdays, so me and the other people at the sanctuary could relax.
Did she do this every week?
Yeah, every week.
Mr. Arata, on the morning of April 30th at the employee breakfast, did SYLVESTRIS DIARDI do anything unusual?
Yeah, oddly enough, she sent us all on wild supply runs. I'd be going to the Wee Spime store. It's about an hour and a half away. Well, the Wee Spime store in Melissa. And Kip Manuel would be going to a meat processing plant, the Steers End, about 3 hours away.
When did you leave the sanctuary?
I left around 7:30.
When you left the sanctuary, who was still there?
Just SYLVESTRIS DIARDI and Barry Bazaar.
Only the defendant and Mr. Bazaar?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Response, Your Honor?
I'll sustain the objection. Rephrase your question.
Mr. Arata, who was only left at the sanctuary when you left?
Just Barry Bazaar and SYLVESTRIS DIARDI.
Mr. Arata, was that the last time that you saw Mr. Bazaar alive?
Yes.
So you left the sanctuary at 7:30. Did you go straight to the Melissa Wee Spime store?
Now, I decided to stop at the local one just to see what was up, and I was pretty mad when I figured out all the supplies we needed were right there.
Did you go anywhere else after leaving the local Wee Spime store?
Yeah, I went to Snoopy's pub on my way back. It's about 15 minutes away from the sanctuary, pretty popular place.
What time did you get to Snoopy's pub?
I got there around 9.
And what time did you leave?
I left around 10:45, got back around 11.
You got back to the sanctuary?
Yeah, to the sanctuary.
Were you intoxicated at all?
No, I was fine. I was completely fine.
And when you got back to the sanctuary, what did you do?
Well, I decided to take a quick walk around the sanctuary.
Did you notice anything strange on your walk?
Yeah, oddly enough, the white cat's cage appeared to be freshly cleaned and bleached. That was pretty weird because Kip had...
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation and lack of foundation. No foundation has been laid that this witness had the job of cleaning any cages. The foundation has not been laid that he knows what a freshly caged looks or smells like. And I also object to speculation that this is not part of his job and he is speculating.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. The witness is testifying to his personal knowledge. He went on a walk of the sanctuary. He's been working at the sanctuary for 6 years. He knows the inner workings, and he can testify to what he saw on that walk.
I'll overrule your objection.
So, Mr. Arata, did you notice anything strange on your walk?
Yeah, oddly enough, the white cat's cage appeared to be freshly cleaned and bleached. And that was pretty weird because Kip hadn't cleaned it before she left, and I certainly hadn't cleaned it, so I don't really know who uses bleach on a cat cage. And Barry's boat, the Cat's Ironic, appeared to be gone, and SYLVESTRIS and Barry were nowhere to be found.
Did you see the defendant at all that night?
Yeah, around midnight, I saw SYLVESTRIS walking back dripping wet from the marina, it appeared to be.
Did SYLVESTRIS know how to operate Barry Bazaar's boat?
Oh, yes, she did.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. This witness cannot testify to the knowledge of Ms. SYLVESTRIS DIARDI.
Response.
Your Honor, if the witness doesn't know about SYLVESTRIS DIARDI's knowledge of driving the boat, then he can answer as such.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
The question was, does she know it? That does call for speculation, the question itself.
I'll overrule your objection. The witness can't answer the question if he knows.
Mr. Arata, did SYLVESTRIS DIARDI know how to operate Barry Bazaar's boat?
Yeah, she did. We took it out on a few outings and, you know, we know how to drive.
Mr. Arata, now I'd like to talk about May 2nd. On this day, did you overhear a conversation between Kit Manul and Pardalis Jacobitis?
Yeah, when I was in the meat processing room and they were in the supply room, I overheard some stuff.
Is the meat
I
processing
was in the supply room and they were in the meat processing room. Sorry about that.
room close to the supply room?
Yeah, they share a wall with each other.
So could you hear the conversation well?
I could hear every word, yeah.
You could hear every word?
Yeah, every word.
Where was SYLVESTRIS when you heard this conversation?
She was standing right next to me.
So what was the conversation about?
Objection, Your Honor. Question calls for hearsay.
Response, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, this is not hearsay. Pursuant to Rule 801C, we are not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted, but to prove the effect on the listener.
I'll overrule your objection.
Mr. Arata, what was the conversation about?
Well, they were both expressing their concerns about Barry. Pardalis seemed especially concerned because she said she had some video footage of SYLVESTRIS mentioning some serious money problems and a fight with Barry over his plan.
Objection, Your Honor. I re-raise my objection to hearsay, and I don't believe this is being used for the effect on the listener. I believe this is being used for the truth of the matter asserted, as it is an out-of-court statement being used.
Response.
Yes, Your Honor, we are not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted, so it is not hearsay pursuant to Rule 801C. We are offering it for the effect on the listener, Serval Arata and SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, whom the witness has testified was standing directly next to him.
Well, I'll overrule the objection.
I'll repeat my question, Mr. Arata. So what was the conversation about?
Well, they were both expressing their concerns about Barry, and Pardalis seemed especially concerned because she had some video footage of SYLVESTRIS mentioning some serious money problems and a fight with Barry over his plan to change the will and take SYLVESTRIS out as the primary beneficiary.
Mr. Arata, did anything happen to Ms. Jacobitis' shed that night?
Yeah, it burned to the ground and all the footage inside went with it.
Finally, Mr. Arata, how long have you been working at the sanctuary?
I've been working there for about 6 years now.
And how long have you known Barry?
I've known Barry since I was a child. I mean, I was a fan of his sanctuary, but closely for about 6 years.
So in your 6 years of living at the sanctuary and spending time with Barry, has he ever just left and never sent word that he was okay or if he got to his destination?
Yeah, he would always tell us when he was leaving or send word back.
And have you heard from Barry since he disappeared a little under a year ago?
I haven't heard from Barry, no.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Rada. My name is Abby Chapman, and I'm going to be asking you some questions today. You testified on your direct examination that it was SYLVESTRIS DIARDI's job to butcher meat and give it to the cats, correct, sir?
I did?
Have you previously testified to that fact?
I have. It was a job, yeah.
All right, I'd like to direct your attention to your fact statement.
Yeah.
Page 19 of the case files and page 4 of your fact statement. That is your signature, correct, sir?
Yes, indeed it is.
And you swore to testify under oath when you made this fact statement, correct?
Yeah.
I'd like to direct your attention to page 2, line 3. I'm going to read aloud. You can read silently. SYLVESTRIS helped take care of big cats, including feeding them and maintain supplies for the sanctuary. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
So when describing Ms. DIARDI's responsibilities at the temple, you never mentioned that it was—
Objection, Your Honor. Improper impeachment. Opposing counsel is trying to impeach my witness based on inconsistent testimony, but what she just tried to impeach my witness on does not disagree with what he previously testified on direct examination.
May I respond?
Response.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm impeaching by omission. This witness listed the responsibilities of Ms. Sylvestris DIARDI and did not name what they testified to in direct examination anywhere in this, and that is impeachment by omission.
Now, overrule.
All right, sir. So nowhere in this, in your entire fact statement, actually, did you ever mention that it was Miss DIARDI's job to butcher meat in the processing room, did you?
Well, she would take care of the big cats. So, you know, that
Objection,
includes
Your Honor, non-responsive. My question was clear and this witness went outside the scope.
I'll sustain the objection. Listen very carefully, Mr. Arata, to the question and just answer that question.
Sir, nowhere in your testimony did you ever testify that Miss DIARDI had the responsibility of butchering meat in the processing room, did you?
No, I just said she would take care of the big cats. No, never in my testimony did I say that.
And you worked for Bazaar for about 6 years, correct?
Yeah, we were very close friends.
You thought, right, you thought you were less like a Boston employee and more like friends and confidants, even family, right?
Yes.
You thought, actually, that you were Bazaar's only real friend, as you testified to.
Yes, yeah.
And you didn't like how much time Mr. Bazaar was spending with Miss DIARDI, did you?
Yeah, not really.
Right. And when Mr. Bazaar decided to change his will, naming Miss DIARDI as the beneficiary, you were shocked, right?
Yeah, I was a little shocked, yeah.
You were confused and you were so hurt by that decision, right? That's what you said?
Oh, yeah, I was so hurt, yeah.
Because prior to that, you were the sole beneficiary of Bazaar's estate, weren't you?
No, it's not because of that. I mean, I just felt it was odd that he would move it to Sylvestris.
Right, sir, but you were the sole beneficiary before Miss DIARDI, correct?
Yeah, after his wife died, he moved it to me and moved it around a couple times. But I was the sole beneficiary, yeah?
And you actually have a pile of bills to pay, right? From your parents?
No, I've got it all under control. Very small. I've got installment plans, all that. I'm totally fine with that.
Sir, my question was, you've testified that you have a pile of bills to pay and no way to pay them. Am I correct?
I do have a way to pay them, actually.
Have you previously testified to that fact?
Yeah, a while ago I testified. Excuse me?
Have you previously testified to that fact?
Yes, I've previously testified in my fact statement. Yeah.
That you have a way to pay those bills?
I didn't have a way to pay the bills 3 years ago, but now I'm totally fine on track.
Sir, my question was, you made an addendum in this fact state and today, correct? You made an addendum?
I did make an addendum.
And nowhere in that addendum did you ever mention that you no longer have that pile of bills, did you?
I have a small pile of bills, actually, but I've got it all under control.
Right, but you've never testified previously that you have it under control, is my question.
No, I didn't put that in there, but I do.
Right. And Mr. Bazaar told you that he would take care of you by making you the beneficiary, correct?
He did.
And in your words, Miss DIARDI didn't know Bazaar as well as you did, right?
Yeah, I knew Bazaar better. We were closer.
Right, who does that to their family, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
And just like you loved Bazaar, you loved the temple, didn't you?
I did. I like the temple a lot.
And you're the contingent beneficiary of the will, correct?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
So if Miss DIARDI is convicted today, you will actually inherit everything, including that beloved temple, won't you?
I suppose that is true, yeah.
And to be clear, you're testifying against Miss Sylvestris DIARDI?
I'm testifying for the state.
Right, against Miss DIARDI, correct?
Well, yeah, she's on the, yeah, so yeah.
And you don't know for sure whether Bazaar is even dead, do you?
I think he's dead.
Sir, my question was, you don't know for sure, correct?
I mean, yeah, there's always that 1% chance, yeah.
Right. Isn't it true, in your own words, Bazaar's actually disappeared a few times before without telling anyone?
He would always text in, and there was something different about this time.
Sir, my question was, in your own words, he's disappeared multiple times without telling anyone, correct?
Yeah, he would disappear a few times, but never like this.
Well, you can't tell the jury, sir, that for sure Mr. Bazaar isn't on another one of these trips, can you?
Objection, Your Honor. My objection is to improper use of character evidence. Opposing counsel is trying to use prior instances of Mr. Bazaar taking out his boat and not sending word of where he was or if he was okay, and trying to use that to prove that in this particular instance, Mr. Bazaar acted in accordance with that. She is not allowed to do so pursuant to Rule 404A1.
Response.
Your Honor, I'm not that this is what happened, but just the fact that this witness cannot rule it out. I'm not using prior actions to show that to get this witness to testify that this is exactly what happened, but the fact that he can't rule it out, which is admissible character evidence.
I'll overrule the objection.
Right. So you can't tell the jury for sure that Mr. Bizarre isn't on another one of these unannounced trips, now can you?
Oh, he's not on those trips. He's never been gone for 11 months before. Let me tell you
Sir,
that.
as you just said, you can't tell us for sure. You don't even know if he's dead.
Hey, he's never been gone for 11 months. So I don't know.
All right. I'd like to talk about the feeding notes. I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit 7, page 50 of the case materials. You recognize these, right?
Excuse me, could you repeat the place?
Page 50 of the case materials, Exhibit 7.
Oh, Exhibit 7, yeah.
You recognize these, correct?
I'm going to it real quick. Oh yeah, that's Sylvestris' feeding notes.
Right. Sylvester Stiardi's feeding notes. They were kept and prepared in the course of regularly conducted business, correct?
Oh yeah, I was in charge of a lot of paperwork, so yeah.
Right. They were made at or near the time of the event, the week of April 30th.
Generally speaking, yeah.
They were made by a person of knowledge, correct?
They were made by Sylvestris, if that's what you mean.
A person of knowledge, right, sir?
Yeah, Sylvestris, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 7 into evidence as a business record for the Big Cat Temple.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. My objection is to hearsay. Pursuant to Rule 803-6, the maker of this document must have knowledge, which Sylvestris did, but Serval did not make this document and does not have knowledge of what the document records. Therefore, it is still hearsay.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
We've actually established the foundation that Mr. Arata is a custodian of this document, as he regularly kept copies of these feeding notes as business practice. Therefore, him and Ms. DIARDI are both custodians of the document.
Your Honor.
You go ahead.
This does not qualify as a business record on the part of Serval Arata. Serval Arata did not make the document and does not have personal knowledge of what it records. It is still hearsay.
May I respond?
I'll overrule the objection and the exhibit is admitted.
I'm going to read from April 29th, 1 p.m. You could read silently. Only enough meat for 2 big cats, but split it up to feed the final 5 big cats to discuss the meat plant going out of biz with Barry. Did I read that correctly?
I'm actually lost on where you're reading it.
April 29th, 1 p.m., sir.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm there.
So there was a lack of meat at the temple, correct?
I mean, I don't know what was going on with the meat of the temple. I mean, I wasn't in charge of that.
All right. April 30th, 9:15 a.m. Not enough meat to feed all big cats. Did I read that correctly?
But I don't know how much meat there was at the sanctuary. I mean,
My question is, based upon this document, there was not enough meat to feed all of the cats.
I wouldn't know what this document means. I mean, I wasn't in charge of the meat. I don't know. She could have, I mean, I don't know what she would say.
You don't know what the words "not enough meat" mean?
Well, I know it says it here, but I don't know how much meat the sanctuary had.
All right. Okay. And you previously claimed that Miss DIARDI was starving the white cat, correct?
She was, I believe. Well, no, she didn't feed him on the day of, I suppose.
Well, you weren't looking over the defendant's shoulder watching her not feed the cat, were you? You based that testimony upon the feeding notes, correct?
Could you repeat that, please?
You weren't looking over Miss DIARDI's shoulder watching her not feed the cats, correct?
No, I wasn't.
Right. You based your testimony upon the feeding notes. Sir?
Yes.
You based your testimony upon the feeding notes, correct?
I don't know what I based on the feeding notes. All I said was I'm not in charge of that area of the sanctuary.
So you didn't keep these as regularly conducted business?
I did keep these, but I was not in charge of feeding the cats, is all I'm saying.
All right, I'm going to read the last line of this exhibit. You can read silently. May 1st, to discuss with Barry in case vet visit needed. Did I read that correctly?
That's a Barry in case vet visit.
So based upon this, Ms. DIARDI was planning on speaking with Mr. Bizarre on May 1st. Am I correct?
Well, I don't know what she was planning. I mean, she wrote.
Your Honor, the witness has become non-responsive. It is very clear that I'm asking him to base his testimony upon this document, and he's failing to do so.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
The witness is answering the questions to the best of his ability.
I'll overrule your objection. The witness can answer as best he can.
All right, sir, I'm gonna ask one more time. Based upon this, to discuss with Barry in case vet visit needed, Miss DIARDI was planning on speaking with Mr. Bizarre on May 1st. Am I correct?
I had no idea what Miss DIARDI was trying to do. I mean, she wrote that down apparently, but I had no idea what she was going to do.
Right, but it's your claim, to be clear, that Miss DIARDI murdered Barry Bizarre on April 30th, correct?
Yes, I believe that.
All right, so employees like yourself only made about $8 an hour, right?
$5.50 a week. So whatever that equates to.
That's $8 an hour. So to be clear, you believe, let's get this straight, Sylvestris DIARDI murdered Barry Bizarre to inherit a place that couldn't even feed their own cats, right?
Wait, Sylvestris DIARDI married Barry Bizarre to what?
To inherit the temple, which couldn't even feed their own cats, right?
Well, at times they'd have to go without food a little bit, but I mean, we could feed them generally.
All right, and you believe Sylvestris DIARDI murdered Barry Bizarre to inherit a place that couldn't even pay their own employees above minimum wage, right?
I don't know the financial situation. I mean, I do know that we had room and board along with $5.50 a week.
You don't know your own financial situation, sir?
I don't know the financial situation of the owner.
All right, Your Honor. No further questions. I pass this witness.
Thank you.
Redirect examination.
Yes, Your Honor, brief. Mr. Arata, you testified that Sylvestris DIARDI is in charge of feeding the cats on cross-examination. Are you aware of what that entails?
I believe that she has to get meat for them and grind up some carcasses and feed it to them and then dispose of all the waste.
And Mr. Arata, how are you paying your bills right now?
Got an installment plan. I've got all my money management under control, room and board at the sanctuary, so I can just, chip away at that. I've been chipping away for 3 years now.
You have it under control?
I've got it all under control.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Recross.
None needed, Your Honor.
All right. Okay, prosecution, call your next witness.
Your Honor, may I have 1 minute to change my name?
You may.
Your Honor, the state calls Pardalis Jacobitis.
All right. Go ahead.
Ms. Jacobitis, will you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, my name is Pardalis Jacobitis. I'm a journalist, but my specialty is in documentaries.
How long have you been working as a documentary maker?
It's been 10 years now.
Were you working as a documentary maker in the months of April and May 2020?
Yes, I was.
Now, where were you working?
I was working at the Big Cat Temple in Landry County, TEXOMA.
What drew you to the Big Cat Temple?
I actually had the opportunity to meet the founder and owner, Barry Bizarre. We started talking and he agreed to let me produce a documentary about him.
Ms. Jacobitis, at the sanctuary, was there a cat of particular interest to Mr. Bizarre?
Yes, it was a white Siberian tigress called the White Cat.
And what did Mr. Bizarre like about this cat?
Well, he acquired the tiger cub shortly after his wife sadly passed away. And he always believed that there's some sort of special connection between the White Cat and his wife, which is why he called it the White Cat or Wife Cat.
How did it go filming your documentary at the sanctuary?
It was amazing. Definitely the most interesting documentary I've ever made by far. You know, action around every corner. I even lived on site so I wouldn't miss anything.
Did you ever get any nights off?
Yes, every Thursday night I would take my crew, Minolta and Rex, out to get dinner and drinks.
Was this night off important for you and your crew?
Absolutely. We were pretty much working 24/7 except for Thursday nights.
How do you know the defendant, Sylvestris DIARDI?
I actually met Sylvestris while I was working on the documentary, and I guess you could say she was the most interesting employee to interview.
How was Miss DIARDI an interesting person to interview?
Well, on the outside, she seemed just like an average employee, but every time we talked, she would just open up a little bit more. And that's what really happened one night in her trailer.
Ms. Jacobitis, what did the defendant say to you that night in her trailer?
She looked straight at the camera and said, "Wouldn't it be perfect karma if Barry was eaten by the Y cat? The cat's ultimate revenge to being branded as some reincarnated dead lady."
And did you say revenge?
Revenge, response, the message was the same. Sylvester said that he wanted Barry dead.
Now, Ms. Jacobitis, did the defendant know about your weekly nights off?
Yes, everybody did.
To clarify, Mr. DIARDI, did he know that every Thursday you and your crew and all of your cameras would be gone from the sanctuary?
Objection, Your Honor, lack of personal knowledge. This witness cannot testify to our client's knowledge.
Response, Your Honor. If my witness doesn't know, she can simply answer as such.
Response, Your Honor.
I'll overrule the objection. The witness can answer the question if she knows.
I'll restate my question. Ms. Jacobitis, to your knowledge, did the defendant know that every Thursday you and your crew and all of your cameras would be gone from the sanctuary?
Yes, everybody at the sanctuary knew we were always gone Thursday night and would stay out super late.
Now, I'd like to draw your attention to April 30th. What was happening that morning?
Well, April 30th just started out as a normal day. That is until I went to the employee breakfast, and that's when things began to get weird.
What was unusual about this breakfast that morning?
Well, SYLVESTRIS was planning all of these unusual errands for the employees to run.
What were these errands that SYLVESTRIS was sending everyone on?
Just supply runs, random stuff.
And was there anything unusual about these errands?
Yes, for starters, it was a Thursday, which meant me and my crew would already be gone. These errands were all taking place at the same time that night, and they were all really long, like over 3 hours.
Now, Ms. Jacobitis, what time did you leave that night?
Around 7:30 p.m.
On the night of April 30th, did anyone else leave around the same time as you?
Yes, Serval Arata left the sanctuary at the same time as I did.
So after you left the sanctuary, to your knowledge, who was left there?
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. This witness was simply not present, so speculating as to who remained at the sanctuary is outside of her scope of knowledge.
Response, Your Honor. I preface the question with to your knowledge and at this time. If my witness doesn't know, she can simply answer as such.
I'll overrule the objection. You may answer.
I'll restate my question, Ms. Jacobitis. To your knowledge, when you left the sanctuary, who was left alone there?
Barry Bizarre and SYLVESTRIS DIARDI.
To clarify, the defendant and the victim were left alone at the sanctuary?
Yes.
When you later returned to the sanctuary, what did you do?
Well, as usual, I got back super late, so I went straight to bed. But the next day, no one could find Barry or his boat.
Now, did this worry you?
Not at the time. It wasn't until I talked to Kip on the next day that everything really came together and I became very worried.
Ms. Jacobitis, what began to worry you?
Well, of course, the incriminating footage I had of SYLVESTRIS DIARDI and Barry was missing. On top of that, the Y-Cat's cage had been freshly cleaned and smelled like bleach, but the other cages were just as filthy as before. And along with that, SYLVESTRIS had some pretty bad money problems.
With all this information, Ms. Jacobitis, what did you do next?
I really regret this now, but I didn't want to be too dramatic or too hasty. So I decided to give Barry 24 hours to call or show up. And if he didn't do that, I would take the footage I had of SYLVESTRIS to the police and they could do something about it if they thought that was necessary.
Did you share your plan with anyone?
Yes, with Kip Manul while we were in the supply room.
To your knowledge, could anyone have overheard this conversation?
Yes, Serval Arata and SYLVESTRIS DIARDI.
SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, the defendant?
Exactly.
Now, after your plan to go to the police was made known to the defendant, what happened that night?
That night, I woke up choking on smoke. The shed where I lived was on fire. The smoke alarm was not going off, and I
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance as to the fire, it occurred after Mr. Bizarre's disappearance.
Response, Your Honor. It's the state's contention that evidence about Mr. Bizarre's disappearance was kept in Ms. Jacobitis' shed. It is also our contention that SYLVESTRIS DIARDI purposely set fire to this shed to cover his tracks. This is extremely relevant to today's case.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
In the stipulations today, stipulation 12 says that no lesser charges are to be argued in this court today. Arson is a separate charge. It's not included in the stipulations. If the state wanted to argue that it occurred, they should have brought it into the stipulations.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
We're not arguing the charge of arson, simply that Ms. DIARDI took a hand in covering up evidence that relates to the night of April 30th, the disappearance of Mr. Bizarre.
Overruled your objection.
Ms. Jacobaitis, I'll restate my question. After your plan to go to the police was made known to the defendant, what happened that night?
I woke up to a huge fire. The smoke alarm was not going off and I barely made it out alive, but I lost everything. All of my personal belongings, all of my cameras and computer equipment, and every second of documentary footage that I had filmed over the last year.
Now, Ms. Jacobaitis, immediately after the fire, why did you not tell Detective Leo about everything you had lost?
In my exhausted and disoriented state, obviously, I told Detective Leo everything I could remember at the time. I told him about the footage of SYLVESTRIS. I just didn't go into details. As soon as I remembered that I'd forgotten to tell the detective a couple of things, I went straight to the police station and clarified everything.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Response, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
This witness had a conversation with the detective where she said that she would be able to offer evidence. This will qualify as a signal of intent and is an exception to the hearsay rule.
Response.
Response, Your Honor, I think this testimony is being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. The fact that it was a signal of intent does not stop it from being offered as the truth of the matter asserted. And I would ask that opposing counsel show me a citation for this exception.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
There is no statement being offered, simply the act that Ms. Jacobaitis was offering evidence to the police. This is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted and is a signal of intent.
Overrule.
Ms. Jacobaitis, I'll ask my question again. Immediately after the fire, why did you not tell Detective Leo about everything you had lost?
I did my absolute best to tell him everything I could remember, even though I'd been up all night and just lost everything. And as soon as I remembered that I had forgotten something, I went straight to the police station and cleared up everything that needed to be cleared up.
Ms. Jacobaitis, to be specific, what was one of the things you lost in the fire?
All of my documentary footage, including incriminating video evidence.
Ms. Jacobaitis, who is this incriminating video evidence of?
SYLVESTRIS DIARDI.
Now, Ms. Jacobaitis, has Mr. Bizarre reached out to you to let you know that he is okay?
No, he is not.
Has Mr. Bizarre reached out or attempted to have any contact at all with you since April 30th, 2020?
No, it's been 11 months now.
Your Honor, I pass this witness.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Zoe Gamaros, and I'm going to be asking you some questions today. You came to the Big Cat Temple in spring of 2019, yes?
Yes.
And your purpose at the sanctuary was to film a documentary?
Yes.
You thought the documentary was really going to put you on the map, right?
Yes, it was a great environment.
And hands down, you thought that Ms. DIARDI was the most interesting employee, correct?
Yes, you could say interesting, definitely.
You were really unlucky when you missed any footage of Ms. DIARDI saving Mr. Bizarre's life. Those were your words?
Yes.
But after that, Mr. Bizarre changed his will, naming Ms. DIARDI his heir, and that created great conflict on screen. Isn't that correct?
Tension, some conflict on screen, yes.
You focused a lot of your film on Ms. DIARDI, right?
Yes.
And Ms. DIARDI was happy to be employed, correct?
Yes.
Now, let me see if I understood your testimony on direct. You said that the defendant threatened Barry Bizarre. You said that today, right?
Yes, on camera.
Now, did you give the prosecutors the telephone number and address of Karma?
I'm sorry, Karma?
Yes, did you give the prosecutors the telephone number and address of Karma?
Karma is not a person. Karma...
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Response, Your Honor?
Well, you may.
The counsel asked my witness if she gave the telephone number of Karma. My witness answered that Karma is not a person. She was answering the counselor's question.
I'll overrule the objection. You may answer.
I can ask my question again. Did you give the prosecutors the telephone number and address of Karma?
Karma is an idea, not a person, so there is no number to give.
So Karma isn't some kind of hitman that you know.
Yes, that's right.
The truth is, my client never directly threatened Mr. Bizarre, never threatened to shoot Mr. Bizarre.
She did not use those exact words, yes.
She never threatened to stab Mr. Bizarre.
Yes, that's correct.
And she certainly never threatened to grind him up and feed him to the cats, right?
Yeah, she never gave me those details of her plan.
Let's be clear, you never had any direct footage of my client threatening Mr. Bizarre.
Yeah, she destroyed that footage that I had.
You never had it in the first place, correct?
I had the footage where she made the statement, wouldn't it be perfect karma if Barry was eaten by the white cat?
Objection, Your Honor, the witness has become non-responsive.
Response, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
She asked my witness was it true that she did not have this footage? My witness did have this footage and she was simply answering her question. It may just not be the answer the counsel is looking for.
I'll overrule the objection.
No, Mr. Kobitis, you never recorded any footage of Ms. DIARDI and Mr. Bizarre fighting, right?
No.
You never recorded any footage of Mr. Bizarre threatening to change the will, right?
Yeah, they didn't have those conversations in front of a camera.
Right. Now let's be clear about what you did record. Your documentary wasn't focused on the cats, it was focused on the people, right?
Well, the people who worked around the cats, but I did have some footage of the cats themselves.
And when a documentary focuses on people and their interactions with one another, drama sells. Isn't that true?
I wouldn't say drama. I would say reality. I mean, who said like reality is stranger than fiction? People love stuff like, reality.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has become non-responsive.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
Counsel is asking my witness a very specific question on if reality television sells. My witness was simply answering the question.
Overrule.
Now, Mr. Kobitis, Ms. Jacobitis, you've changed the documentary to be more of a true crime documentary following Mr. Bizarre's disappearance.
Since Sylvestris destroyed all my original footage, yes, I'm trying to salvage what I can.
And true crime presumes that a crime occurred, correct?
Yes, as in this case.
And you said you're hoping for some great cross-examination lines prepared for my client, correct?
Yes, the truth needs to come out.
Now, Ms. Jacobitis, you're now featured as a subject within your own documentary, correct?
Am I taking selfie videos of myself, you mean?
No. You're testifying for the prosecution in respect to the documentary that you're making. Isn't that correct?
I'm testifying for the prosecution because I was a witness to the crime.
And you're making a documentary about the very case that you're testifying in. Isn't that true?
I'm attempting to make a documentary, but at this point, I'm not sure if it's going to happen.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has become non-responsive.
Response.
I'll overrule the objection. You may finish your answer.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
You're now testifying for the prosecution in the very documentary that you're making. Isn't that correct?
I'm testifying for the prosecution to get justice for Barry Bizarre and also as a witness to the crime that occurred. I'm also making a documentary, so yes.
You don't consider that a breach of your journalistic integrity?
No, not at all. A journalist films what happened and what is true, and that is exactly what I am doing.
It is clear a conviction would help that documentary because murder sells, right?
Any conviction would make a documentary. The audience is just interested in seeing some sort of conviction.
All right, Ms. Jacobitis, no more questions, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor. May my witness step down?
Yes, you may. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, may I have 30 seconds or so to change my Zoom profile name? I'll be ready to proceed in just a few seconds.
Yes.
The state calls Sundulio. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Good afternoon. My name is Sundulio.
What is your occupation?
I'm a criminal detective, and I specialize in major crimes, including murder.
What experience do you have with murder investigations?
I have participated in 5 total murder investigations prior to this one. I've assisted in 3, and I've been the lead detective in 2 cases. So this would be my 6th murder investigation.
Will you please describe your typical investigation process for the jury?
Yes. When I receive a new case, I immediately go to the potential crime scene. Following that, I interview any witnesses. Based off what I learned from those witnesses, I conduct any further necessary steps in my investigation. A lot of the time, that includes forensics and taking notes and photographs of the general appearance of the crime scene.
Did you begin a new investigation on May 3rd, 2020?
I did, yes.
What happened on May 3rd, 2020?
On May 3rd, I was called to investigate the scene of a fire that had just occurred at the Big Cat Temple.
Detective Leo, would you recognize a map of this Big Cat Temple if I were to show it to you?
Yes, I would.
Please turn to Exhibit 1 on page 44 of the case materials and let me know when you are there. Your Honor, let the record reflect we're all looking at Exhibit 1.
The record so reflects.
And Detective Leo, do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, I do. It is a map of the Big Cat Temple.
Please describe the general layout of the Big Cat Temple to the jury using this map in Exhibit 1.
All right. As you can see on this map, north is oriented to the left and south is oriented to the right. You can see in the northwest corner Mr. Bazar's house, colored in beige. This is where Mr. Bazar lived the night of April 30th. Directly to the east of that, connected by a driveway, you can see the meat processing room, which is colored in green. This is where equipment like the meat grinders and bandsaws were kept. You can also, as you can see, the north side of both of these buildings is out of view from the marina and from most of the other parts of the sanctuary. To the east of both of these buildings, you can see the big cat cages in 3 sets of 5. The cage of most significance is the white cat.
Cumulative.
Brief response, Your Honor, the witness is naming the buildings that are labeled on Exhibit 1, but he is also providing additional details about these buildings that are not contained in Exhibit 1. Therefore, Your Honor, he is providing additional information, and this is not cumulative pursuant to 403.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
Your Honor, if opposing counsel wants to elicit testimony regarding the specifics of this map, then she should do so, but she is simply asking a general question, and the witness is just describing the map in general. And it's presenting cumulative evidence.
I'll overrule your objection.
Detective Leo, beginning where you left off, will you describe the general layout of the Big Cat Temple for the jury using Exhibit 1?
Sure. As I was saying, you can see there are the cat cages right in this top row here. You can see the cage marked with an X. This cage belonged to a tiger called Y Cat. And you can also see Ms. Jacobitis' shed right here, colored in yellow. This is the building that originally burned down that I was called to investigate. And finally, in the southwest corner, you can see the marina, which is colored in blue and was a boat dock.
Did you visit this boat dock when you conducted your initial investigation on May 3rd?
I did. I visited on May 3rd. And while I was there, I was able to interview the marina's operator, Charles Namir.
What did you learn from Mr. Namir?
I learned from Mr. Namir that Mr. Bazar owned a sailboat, the Cat's Ironic.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Response.
Your Honor, this is not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. It's being offered to prove the effect on the listener and the detective's subsequent actions as part of his investigation.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
Your Honor, if opposing counsel is demonstrating this as a subsequent action, then I see that as being used for the truth of the matter asserted to show that there is some merit to these statements and that furthermore, that they are correct in some way. I don't see how it's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
Brief response, Your Honor.
You may.
Towards the beginning of his testimony, Detective Leo testified that he bases his investigative actions off of witness interviews, and this interview is one such witness interview. Whether or not the witness was telling the truth does not affect whether or not Detective Leo based his further investigative actions upon its statements.
I'll overrule the objection.
Your Honor, may I ask for a limiting instruction so as not to be used for the truth of the matter asserted?
Well, no, that request is denied.
Detective Leo, I'll re-ask the question. What did you learn from Mr. Namir on May 3rd?
When I interviewed Mr. Namir, on May 3rd, I learned about Mr. Bazar's boat, the Cat's Ironic.
What did Mr. Namir provide any details about this boat?
Yes, he actually spoke quite highly of it. He said that Mr. Bazar usually kept it in his care at the marina.
Was this boat at its dock on May 3rd?
It was not.
Did you discuss this with Mr. Namir?
I did. Mr. Namir expressed some surprise at the fact that on April 30th, between 10 and 11 p.m., Mr. Bazar's boat, the Cat's Ironic, left its dock, and Mr. Bazar did not check in with Mr. Namir first.
Did you conduct a search for Mr. Bazar's boat?
I did. On May 4th, following my initial investigation, I coordinated with the Coast Guard to perform a search of Mr. Bazar's boat.
And what was the result of that search?
After 2 weeks of searching, the Coast Guard had found no trace of Mr. Bazar's boat or Mr. Bazar.
Detective Leo, directing your attention back to May 3rd, did you interview any witnesses on May 3rd?
Yes, I did. I interviewed, I believe, all the employees of the sanctuary.
Who did you interview first?
I interviewed Ms. Pardalis Jacobitis, who was filming a documentary, around 8:25 a.m.
What was your initial impression of Ms. Jacobitis when you interviewed her?
Well, when I originally started my questioning, she had a hard time focusing on what I was asking. She appeared pretty distracted, and she said that she felt distraught.
What did you interview Ms. Jacobitis about?
I interviewed her about the cause of the fire that had occurred earlier that morning, 3 a.m.
What did Ms. Jacobitis tell you?
Ms. Jacobitis rambled on about how the fire and Mr. Bazar's disappearance were related. She seemed sure that Mr. Bazar hadn't just disappeared, he had been murdered. That Mr. DIARDI had murdered him, and then later Mr. DIARDI had burned down the shed.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Response.
Your Honor, Ms. Jacobitis, Detective Leo is testifying about what a witness at the crime scene told him when he conducted his initial investigation. And the declarant in the statement has made several statements about what Ms. DIARDI did surrounding the night of April 30th. This is completely relevant, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
Your Honor, I'm addressing specifically the portion regarding the fire. Your Honor, the DA did not prosecute our client with any sort of charge relating to arson. There was only one charge brought forth, and that was of murder. Opposing counsel wants to argue that my client is guilty of a lesser crime, which is a violation of stipulation 12, which opposing counsel agreed to, that states that no lesser charge should be argued at trial. Opposing counsel is stating specifically that my client was tampering with evidence or arson.
Brief response, Your Honor.
You may.
It's our contention that Ms. DIARDI covered up her evidence of the murder by committing arson. The fact that she did, but we are not prosecuting for arson. We can still argue that she committed arson to cover up this evidence without bringing a lesser included charge. This is still completely relevant.
Response, Your Honor.
I'll overrule your objection.
Detective Leo, beginning where you left off, what did Ms. Jacobitis tell you?
Ms. Jacobitis told me that the burning down of the shed and Mr. Bazar's disappearance were related. She was positive that Mr. DIARDI had burned down her shed and had something to do with the disappearance of Mr. Bazar. She thought that Ms. DIARDI had burnt down her shed to destroy incriminating video evidence of herself.
Did you have a chance to investigate this shed yourself?
I did. After I interviewed Ms. Jacobitis, I investigated the burnt down shed.
What did you see?
Well, as Ms. Jacobitis led me to expect, I saw a lot of melted video equipment. I also discovered that the batteries in the smoke detector have been disconnected.
Detective Leo, did you interview any other witnesses as part of your investigation?
Yes, I also interviewed Mr. Serval Arata, Mr. Bazar's previous personal assistant.
What did you learn from Mr. Arata?
I learned that on the night of April 30th, Ms. DIARDI sent all the sanctuary employees off the grounds, leaving just herself and Mr. Bazar at the sanctuary.
Did Mr. Arata tell you where he went that night?
Yes, Mr. Arata said that he had gone to the We Spy M store for electronic equipment, and after that had gone to Snoopy's Pub, a local bar. He also said that when he got back to the sanctuary, one of the cat cages smelled like it had been recently bleached.
Detective Leo, did you conduct any forensic tests as part of your investigation?
Yes, I did. I conducted forensics tests on the Y-Cat's cage, marked as an excellent on Exhibit 1. The same cage Mr. Arata said had been bleached. I also conducted forensics tests on the site of the burnt down shed.
Did these forensic tests yield a report?
Yes, they did.
Would you recognize this report if I showed it to you?
Yes, I would.
Please turn to Exhibit 4 on page 47 of the case materials and let me know when you're there.
All right.
Detective Leo, when were these forensic tests conducted?
They were conducted on May 4th, and I received this report on May 10th, 1 week after the fire.
And who is this report addressed to?
It is addressed to me, Detective Leo.
Was this report kept in the course of a regularly conducted activity of business?
Yes, it was.
Was making this report a regular practice of that business activity?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state offers Exhibit 4 into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, I object to hearsay. This document is from a separate business from the TEXOMA Police Department. It's from a third-party organization, the TEXOMA Forensic Testing Laboratory, and this witness cannot be a custodian or qualified witness.
Brief response, Your Honor. Your Honor, the witness just testified that this report was addressed to him. It said Detective Leo at the top, therefore he is a custodian of the report and can testify as to the conditions under which it was made pursuant to Rule 803.6 subsection D.
Overrule.
The Detective Leo, just to be clear, this forensic
And
report,
I'm sorry, and the exhibit is admitted. Go ahead.
Detective Leo, just to be clear, this forensic report contained results from the Y-Cat's cage marked with an X on Exhibit 1.
Yes, that's correct.
What type of results does it contain?
It contained blood trace evidence.
Detective Leo, approximately how many feet wide was this cage?
It's about 20 feet wide.
How much blood did you find on the floor of the cage?
I did not find any human blood on the floor of the cage.
Any animal blood on the floor of the cage?
I did not find any blood at all on the floor of the cage, human or animal.
Detective Leo, why was this significant to your investigation?
Yes, it was.
Why was it significant?
It was significant because this was the cage Mr. Rada told me had been recently bleached. So it made sense there was no blood on the floor. Now, bleach removes biological traces like blood traces, and bleach can be used to hide evidence of violence or some sort of a struggle.
Did you conduct any other witness interviews on May 5th?
Yes, I did. I interviewed Mr. Rada and Mr. Jacobitis on May 5th.
What did you learn from Mr. Jacobitis on May 5th?
Ms. Jacobitis stated that some of her destroyed videos were actually recordings of interviews with Mr. DIARDI, where Ms. DIARDI wished that Mr. Bizarre would be killed by one of the big cats at the sanctuary.
Did Mr. Arata corroborate Ms. Jacobitis' story?
Yes, he did. He also said that one day before the fire, on May 2nd, Mr. DIARDI overheard a conversation between Ms. Jacobitis and Mr. Manu, where Ms. Jacobitis said that if Mr. Bizarre did not show up in the next 24 hours, then she would call the police and show them her video evidence of Mr.
Objection, Your Honor, double hearsay.
Response, Your Honor. Your Honor, Your Honor, the first instance of hearsay, Serval Arata's statement, is excluded from hearsay pursuant to Rule 801 D1B. Mr. Arata is also a witness in this case and is the declarant of this statement, and the defense has implied that his statements have been recently fabricated. This is being offered to rebut this claim of fabrication, and it is a declarant witness's prior consistent statement. As to the second hearsay statement, that statement was being offered to prove the effect on the listener, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI. Mr. Arata said that Mr. DIARDI was listening to this conversation while it was happening. And this was before Ms. Jacobitis' shed was burned down on May 3rd.
I'll overrule the objection.
Detective Leo, I'll re-ask the question. Briefly, what did Mr. Arata say to you?
Mr. Arata told me that one day before the fire, Ms. DIARDI overheard a conversation between Ms. Jacobitis and Mr. Manu, where Ms. Jacobitis stated that if Mr. Bizarre did not turn up in the next 24 hours, then she would call the police and show them her video evidence of Ms. DIARDI.
Did you find any fingerprints in this shed that had burned down?
Yes, 2 of DIARDI's fingerprints were on the smoke detector, whose batteries have been disconnected.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Vincent Reed, and I'm going to ask you some questions today. Now, you've been a lead detective for about 2 years now, correct?
Good afternoon, Mr. Reed. Yes, I have.
You handled murder investigations before Ms. Bizarre's case, right?
No, I had several murder investigations.
You know how important it is to collect physical evidence then, true?
Oh, it's very important to collect all the evidence that you can.
All right, well, let's talk about the evidence you've collected with respect to the very bizarre murder investigation. Well, you collected a body in this case, right, Detective?
Excuse me, can you say that again?
You collected a body in this case, right, Detective?
No, it's my theory the body was destroyed.
So that's a no. You didn't collect a body.
No, because the body had been destroyed.
Okay. You never found, let's be clear, never found any DNA evidence of Mr. Bizarre in the grinding room, did you?
Not in the grinding room, no.
You didn't locate any of Mr. Bizarre's DNA in my client's trailer, did you?
In Mr. DIARDI's trailer, no.
Now, you never located any DNA evidence or blood samples whatsoever at the dock of the marina where Mr. Bizarre's boat was docked, true?
Not at the marina, no.
Let's talk about what you did collect. So you collected some blood samples, right?
Yes, blood samples from the Wildcat's cage.
And some fingerprints from the smoke detector, right?
Yes, and Mr. Jacobaitis' shed that had burned down.
All right, I'm going to direct your attention to Exhibit 4, which has already been admitted. The 6th paragraph down, I'll read aloud while you follow along silently. We were unable to date the fingerprints on the smoke detector and therefore cannot estimate how long those fingerprints have been on the smoke detector. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did. This is the lab's report.
All right, I'm going to direct your attention to the 3rd to last paragraph. I'm going to read the, I'm going to read the 2nd sentence aloud while you follow along silently. We were unable to date the blood traces to determine how long they had been present on the cage bars. I read that correctly, didn't I?
Yes, likewise, this was them scientifically dating the blood traces.
So you didn't have any dated DNA evidence, did you?
I did not have any dated DNA evidence that had been dated scientifically, no.
All right, and you talked a lot on direct about your investigation into the fire. The fire investigators ruled that it was inconclusive. The cause of the fire was inconclusive, correct?
I believe they found possible evidence of arson.
Sir, I'll redirect you back to my question. They ruled it inconclusive, didn't they?
They did not rule it inconclusive. However, they did not issue a conclusive report. I believe their wording was possible evidence of arson.
Okay, but it's your hunch that arson was committed, true?
More than a hunch, I would say, yes.
Okay. Well, let's see, even as of today, you haven't located the cat's ironic, have you?
No, the Coast Guard searched for 2 weeks and they did not find it.
You didn't locate the dinghy that went with it either, did you?
No, likewise, the dinghy has not been found.
Detective, you were the one that coordinated with the Coast Guard to search for Mr. Bizarre's boat, true?
Yes, I did, on May 4th.
Yeah, the Coast Guard offered to do a wider search, didn't they?
Yes, they did, after they had searched for 2 weeks.
And despite not having located a single piece of the boat or the dinghy, you didn't find a further search necessary, so the search was called off, true?
That is true, the search was called off.
And it was after this that you arrested our client, right?
I arrested Miss DIARDI on May 20th. So that'll be after the search was conducted, yes.
You arrested her without a body, true?
The body was not found. So she was arrested without a body being found because the body was destroyed.
Right, and you arrested her without a murder weapon, correct?
No, the murder weapon, I believe, was the grinders, the cat.
Detective, you can't confirm that, right? That's a theory of yours?
That's a very well-educated theory, I would say.
Okay. Are you aware that Sir Valerado's car was seen on the property before the boat left on April 30th?
I believe that's been said.
But that wasn't the testimony that you got from Miss Arata, was it?
The text message? What, can you say that again?
Excuse me, that wasn't the testimony that you got from Miss Arata, right? She stated that she was at the bar on the night of April 30th?
Yes, she said that she had got back around, or he said he had got back around 11, I think.
There is no receipt to prove that he was at that bar that night, is there?
Yes, he did have a receipt at the used item store.
No, Detective, I was asking about the bar. There was no receipt ever pulled from the bar that showed that Sir Valorado was at the bar that night, true?
Yes, excuse me, I believe he paid in cash at the bar.
No, there's no eyewitness. Excuse me, the bartender wasn't able to confirm that Sir Valorado was at that bar that night, true?
No,
Your Honor, this is hearsay.
Response, Your Honor. Your Honor, like opposing counsel, I'm not offering this for the truth of the matter asserted, simply to show the subsequent action, that there was evidence stacked against one of the prosecution's own witness. And despite that, the detective arrested our client, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI.
Brief response, Your Honor.
You may.
The fact that a bartender said that she could not place Serval Arata at Snoopy's pub when Mr. Arata has claimed to be there helps the defense more for the truth value of the statement than to prove Detective Leo's subsequent actions. Therefore, Your Honor, if opposing counsel is offering it not for the truth of the matter asserted, I would change my objection to more prejudicial than probative.
Well, I'll overrule the objection.
All right, so the bartender couldn't confirm if Serval Arata was there on the night of April 30th. True.
She could not remember it.
Now, you're aware that Serval Arata is the contingent beneficiary of Mr. Bizarre's estate, right?
Yes, he is the contingent beneficiary.
And you are aware that, well, you claim that Miss DIARDI's motive is money related, true?
Miss DIARDI, money. I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Excuse me. Arata will inherit the estate if Miss DIARDI is convicted, true?
I believe that's what contingent means, yes.
Your Honor, I pass the witness at this time.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor. May our witness step down?
Yes, he may.
Your Honor, the state rests.
All right. Defense ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense is ready to proceed. Your Honor, at this time, the defense calls Meyer to the stand. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
All right, let's wait for opposing
excuse me, Your
counsel,
Honor.
if you will, Mr. Reed.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Meyer, and I'm none of your business years old. I used to be a Marine, but I left that scene behind me. I work on the boats at the marina and actually live on my own little boat down there. Everybody just calls me Marine.
What is your experience working with boats?
I've worked at the marina for about 10 years on probably like every type of boat. I'd say I'm pretty handy with boats.
What is your relationship with Mr. Bizarre?
Platonic, first of all, but I have known him and his wife when she was alive since I started working at the marina, so we're neighbors. I've helped him out with his boat many times, and I've gotten to know him quite well over the years.
What type of boat did Mr. Bizarre have?
He had a sleek little thing, an Alban Vega 27 called the Cat's Ironic.
How seaworthy was this boat?
Oh, pretty seaworthy, man. I made sure to keep that boat in ship shape, and that model had been sailed across the ocean before.
I want to talk about the events of April 30th. Did you see Barry Bizarre that day?
I didn't see him, but I did see his boat leave that day.
Well, what time did the boat leave?
Around 10 or 11 p.m. that night.
Did you have any idea where the boat was headed when it left?
When it left, no, but I did have some software that could track the boat.
What do you mean?
There's a GPS on the boat that's connected to my laptop via MeFinder, so I checked on the boat's whereabouts.
What did you see when you checked the data?
There were a couple of pings, and the GPS stopped transmitting a couple minutes after 11.
Had the signal from the boat ever gone off like this before?
Yeah, Barry turned off that GPS sometimes. I don't blame him. Big Brother is watching. Also, those things can glitch out sometimes. I didn't think much of it.
What was the weather like that night?
It was really nice out. I mean, the water in that bay, still as glass.
Now, we've heard a lot about this typhoon today. Was that affecting things at the marina?
Honestly, it wasn't affecting things at the marina, so I hadn't really been following the trajectory.
What's your understanding of the events that night with respect to the typhoon?
The typhoon ended up shifting close to the coast and ended up being vicious.
Based on your knowledge of Mr. Bizarre's boat and sailing experience, how do you believe he would have fared under these circumstances?
He was a decent sailor and that boat was fairly sturdy, but he would have had a lot of problems if he got into that storm.
Now, on April 30th, did you observe Miss DIARDI at all?
Yeah, actually, I believe I heard SYLVESTRIS call out like she had before and she would go on a run.
What time do you believe you heard Miss DIARDI?
Around 9:30. I remember that because it was about 15 minutes before I saw a car go into the sanctuary.
Do you know whose car this was?
Yeah, it was Serval Arata's car.
Well, you were here for the testimony of Serval Arata. Did you hear her say that she was returning from the bar just after 11?
Yeah, I heard him say that.
What made you believe that this was his car?
only people who were supposed to be at that sanctuary would be driving north on the dirt road into the sanctuary. And Silverado is the only person we worked through who had a sedan, which is the car I saw.
I want to talk some more about Arata for a moment. Did you have an opportunity to observe Miss DIARDI and Arata's relationship?
She used to make jealous type comments, but after SYLVESTRIS was arrested, she said this one thing that really stuck with me.
How so?
You didn't hear it from me, but she smiled like the cat that ate the canary and said, "Funny how karma works. SYLVESTRIS is going to prison and I'm getting the sanctuary."
Now, were you ever able to confirm Miss DIARDI's relationship with Mr. Bizarre?
DIARDI was always pretty easygoing, and I believe they had a good relationship.
All right, Mr. Meyer. I want to talk about the Coast Guard search. Were you aware of any search for Mr. Bizarre's whereabouts?
Yeah, I was made aware when Detective Leo came to the marina investigating the sanctuary fire.
Were you able to help with this investigation?
I was planning to show Detective Leo the Me Finder data, but they just noted the time and location. It seemed weird, but who am I to tell a detective how to conduct an investigation?
Lastly, Mr. Meyer, do you know where Barry Bizarre is?
I have no idea, and from what I've heard today, no one else seems to know either.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass this witness.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Namir, on direct examination, you testified that you saw Serval Arata returning to the sanctuary earlier than expected. Is this true?
I said I saw Serval Arata's car, sir.
Yes, and you saw him returning on the dirt road behind your marina. Is that correct?
Heading north, yes.
And this dirt road, it's a public road. Is that correct?
Technically, yes, but I mean, it would be pretty hard to get lost over there, in my personal opinion.
So once again, anyone can drive on this road. Is that correct?
Well, that's technically true. There is a sign, so you'd probably see it.
Anyone who owns a sedan can drive on this road?
That's true, but I never saw the sedan going back, so.
Now, Ms. Namir, do you have Exhibit 1 in front of you, and can you refer to it?
Yes, I can. Please just give me a moment. Is that the map of the sanctuary, sir?
Yes. And Your Honor, let the record reflect that the court is following along as well. Do you see the dirt road in Exhibit 1?
Yeah, I do.
Now, following along on the dirt road heading north, there's a driveway connected to Barry Bizarre's home. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is.
And on the night of April 30th, you could not see this driveway. Is that correct?
No, I couldn't.
And also on the dirt road, there's a meat processing plant adjacent to it. Is that correct?
That's correct, there is.
And there's a driveway leading to the north side of the building where there's a large roll-up door. Is that correct?
Sir, where are you pointing? Where are you telling me to look?
To your knowledge, is there a large roll-up door on the north side of the meat processing plant?
I suppose so, yes.
And trucks can pull up to this door and unload meat into the meat processing room. Is that correct?
That is the idea, yes. A truck could do that.
And you could not see the north side of the meat processing room on the night of April 30th. Is that correct?
No, I was in my marina, my boat at the marina, minding my own business. So no, I wasn't looking over there.
So you could not see the entirety of the dirt road. You could not see the driveway to Mr. Bizarre's house, and you could not see the driveway leading towards the meat processing plant?
No, I couldn't. I never said I could. I said that I saw the car going north.
Now, referencing Exhibit 1 again, there's a parking lot on the east side of the sanctuary. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is.
And this parking lot is connected to a nearby highway. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is where the public typically goes when they're visiting the sanctuary.
And you could not see this parking lot on the night of April 30th. Is that correct?
No, I couldn't.
You could not see any of the 4 entrances to the sanctuary on the night of April 30th?
Could you point out those entrances?
4 entrances being the parking lot on the east side, Barry Bizarre's driveway and the meat processing driveway, both on the north side, and the driveway that connects the south side of the sanctuary to the north side of the sanctuary. You could not see any of these 4 entrances to the sanctuary. Is that correct?
I could not see those 4 specific locations. I wasn't looking at them, no.
Now, Mr. Meyer, I'd like to draw your attention to Exhibit 2. Do you have that in front of you as well?
Yes, please give me a moment to grab it, though.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the court is following along as well?
Yes, record reflects.
Now, Ms. Jacobitis, on direct examination, you said that Bizarre's weapon.
Pardon.
Sorry, I'm Miss Meyer. I think you called me Jacobitis.
Oh, I apologize. Do you have Exhibit 2 in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
Ms. Namir, you testified on direct examination that Mr. Bazar's boat had GPS on it. Is that correct?
There is a GPS on his boat, yes.
And on the night of April 30th, you received 2 pings from this GPS. Is that correct?
I testified to the 2 final pings. So,
yes.
yeah.
And the last of the 2 pings was at 11 p.m., placing Mr. Bazar's boat 3 nautical miles off the coast of TEXOMA Bay. Is that correct?
11:10 p.m., sir.
Yes. Now, Ms. Namir, do you see the path of the typhoon on Exhibit 2?
Yes, I see the original path and the final path, yes.
And you see the final path where the typhoon hits the nearby Siegfried Island at 12 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, it goes right next to the island, if that's what you mean.
And to clarify, this will be 50 to 60 minutes after Mr. Bazar's last boat ping. Is that correct?
Do you want me to do the math for you?
Ms. Namir, this ping of the typhoon was 50 to 60 minutes after the last ping on Mr. Bazar's boat. Is that correct?
What ping of the typhoon are you referring to?
There, on Exhibit 2, there's a ping of the typhoon, placing the typhoon hitting the nearby Siegfried Island at 12 a.m. Do you see this?
Sir, I am really confused as to what you're asking me. I'm really sorry, but I do not understand what you're saying.
Your Honor, objection to non-responsive.
Well,
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
Your Honor, my witness is very confused as to what opposing counsel is asking. I believe opposing counsel's asking about pings relating next to the islands when she has testified that the most recent pings were around TEXOMA Bay, and she can't answer to this and is very confused and needs some time to adjust.
Response, Your Honor?
You may.
Referring to Exhibit 1 as the court is following along as well, there is a GPS ping that clearly states that the Typhoon Judy hit the nearby Siegfried Islands at 12 a.m. I'm simply asking the witnesses if this is true and if this happened 50 minutes after Bazar's last GPS ping.
Response, Your Honor.
Well, overall, I'll allow the witness to answer that question if you can.
Ms. Namir, referring to Exhibit 2, there is a GPS ping placing the typhoon at the Siegfried Islands at 12 a.m. Is that correct?
Sir, I was really confused your question. You're saying the path of the typhoon.
Yes.
You called it a GPS ping. I don't have a GPS ping from that location, so that's why I was confused. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. The typhoon, it hit the nearby Siegfried Island at 12 a.m. Is that correct?
It went right next to it, so yes.
Yes, and this is 50 to 60 minutes after Bazar's last GPS ping from his boat. Is that correct?
Roughly, yes.
And this GPS ping, it placed Mr. Bazar's boat 3 nautical miles off the TEXOMA coast. Is that correct?
Away from the marina, yes.
Now, referencing Exhibit 2 again, there's a distance of 32 nautical miles between the TEXOMA coast and the Siegfried Island. Is that correct?
But yes, between inside of the bay and Siegfried Island, yes.
Now, if Mr. Bazar at 11 p.m. was already 3 of these nautical miles, there were 29 nautical miles left. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, Mr. Bazar's boat, the Cat's Ironic, it had a top speed of 25 nautical miles per hour. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
So Mr. Bazar could not have covered the remaining 29 nautical miles in just 1 hour. Is that correct?
He could not have made it all the way to the island if he were heading in that direction.
Yes. And once again, the typhoon hit the nearby island just 50 minutes after his last GPS ping. Is that correct?
That is when the typhoon was right next to the island, yes.
Now, when Mr. Bazar was going out on his sails, he would always let you know. Is that correct?
Nearly always, not every time.
And to clarify, on the night of April 30th, he did not let you know he was going out on a sail. Is that correct?
No, but again, there had been times before when he hadn't let me know immediately.
And to clarify, Mr. Bazar did not let you know he was going out on a sail and has now been missing for 11 months. Is that correct?
That is correct, unfortunately.
I pass this witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Briefly, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Meyer, I'd like you to reference Exhibit 2. Could you hold that up to the camera?
Yes, of course.
All right. Now, could you tell us where did the GPS pings end?
Right around here, near the mouth of the bay.
All right. Now, what direction were those pings showing the boat was headed?
They were showing the boat headed west, I believe, according to this map. Yes, west.
All right. Now, once you leave Texoma Bay, do you have to keep heading west?
Oh, definitely not. There's an entire stretch of ocean north where eventually the typhoon was, but if you headed south, you would completely avoid that storm.
Now, opposing counsel asked you to testify as to Sir Valerado's car and the different locations for where cars could enter the sanctuary. Now, what was the entrance for regular visitors?
The entrance for regular visitors, if you look at the map, is on the park. It is the parking lot, and it goes back to the highway. There's a more direct way to get there. Yeah.
All right. Now, who usually use the dirt road heading into the sanctuary?
I mean, only people who worked at the sanctuary would be heading into the sanctuary, and only people going to the marina would be heading into the marina.
And once again, why do you believe that it was Sir Valerado's car?
Sir Valerado is the only person who worked at the sanctuary who had a sedan, which is the car I saw.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
Any recross?
Free cross, Your Honor. Chouse, Ms. Namir, referring to Exhibit 2, do you see the blue line indicating a distance of 32 nautical miles?
Yes, I do.
Now, this blue line is the expected path of Mr. Bizarre's boat on the night of April 30th. Is that correct?
That is the path it was going when I got my final GPS pings, yes.
I pass this witness, Your Honor.
All right, the witness may step down. Call your next witness, defense.
At this time, the defense calls Kip Minold to the stand.
All right, let's wait on opposing counsel.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
All right. I'm Kit Renewal and I'm 31.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I work for Barry Bazaar at the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary as senior maintenance and repair technician. You know, I turn all the wrenches, grease all the wheels, patch all the holes, and I make this sanctuary business purr like a cat with catnip.
Did you know the defendant?
Yes, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI was one cool cat, let me tell you that. And we worked together at the sanctuary. It was kind of like this crazy cat family. I don't know, man. But the milk started to turn sour March 2019 when Jacko arrived.
And who are you referring to?
Jacko? Jacobus, this awful journalist that thinks he's going to make it big by exploiting all of the Big Cat Temple employees. Listen, I'm going to put it like this. I didn't like Jacko. I didn't like the darn film, and I didn't like the way it was treated by the film crew, all right?
What was the effect of Jacobus's time at the sanctuary?
I mean, constant filming. I couldn't even process a meat without a camera in my face. And this constant demand for drama for this darn documentary. And listen, you didn't hear it from me, but Jacko seemed pretty upset when he didn't get Barry's near-death experience on film.
Near-death experience? What do you mean?
Well, when you get a new cat, they can be a little aggressive, you know what I mean? So Barry Bazaar was kind of hanging out with this new cat, fun and games, but then it kind of pounced. And I mean, I thought Barry had buttered his last biscuit planning a cat-themed funeral or something, but then DIARDI kind of jumped in and wrestled this cat off of Bazaar, saved his life right then and there. I would even say DIARDI showed some real catitude, you know what I mean?
Did Mr. Bazaar and Ms. DIARDI sustain any injuries from this?
Yep, Bazaar and DIARDI got pretty cut up all over. It was bad.
What happened after Ms. DIARDI saved Mr. Bazaar?
Well, Jacko was mad because he didn't get it on film, but that didn't slow him down, not one bit.
Well, what did Ms. Jacobus do directly following Ms. DIARDI saving Mr. Bazaar?
He was kind of moping around the grounds, acting all sad, whatever. But then he just kept digging and digging. And to me, it kind of seemed like he was trying to break up this friendship between Bazaar and DIARDI. But I mean, that's typical Jacko, drama, whatever he wants.
Now, can you explain what happened on the early morning of May 3rd?
So on May 3rd, there was a fire in Jacko's shed, and all of his video equipment and footage was burnt in the fire. I mean, gone.
And who had access to that shed?
Only Bazaar and Jacko.
What did you do knowing that there was a fire within the sanctuary?
Well, I called 911 around 3:17 a.m.
All right, Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to introduce exhibit number 5.
Any objection?
Or sorry, I would like to lay the proper foundation first. Ms. Jacobidis, can you please look at exhibit number 5
All right.
and identify it, please?
So this was a 911 transcript log. It's the conversation between me and the dispatch caller.
And what date was this call made on?
Well, May 3rd, 2020.
And who made this call?
Well, I did, of course.
And is this a true and correct copy?
I would say so.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer the exhibit 5 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, to hearsay.
A response, Your Honor?
Yes.
We're offering this witness's testimony as it is a present sense impression of what was occurring, the fire at the sanctuary, and the rest of the words on this page are merely context for that specific testimony, not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, merely to contextualize this witness's testimony within the document, which is a present sense impression.
Response, Your Honor?
You may.
Regardless to the purpose of contextualization on the part of the dispatcher's words, there is still hearsay and being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
I'll overrule the objection. The exhibit is admitted.
Now, Ms. Minow, can you please read your third line of dialogue?
Yes. Yeah, this is Kit Manule. I work here at the Cat Temple. You know, it kind of smells like an electrical fire. Maybe something short-circuited or something, you know. Hey, I just realized the smoke alarm isn't going off. I swear those pieces of junk that Serval bought are going to end up killing one of us. I bet Barry will upgrade them now and...
All right, you said there that it smelled like an electrical fire, or that yes. Can you please elaborate on what you meant by that?
Yeah, well, with my experience as a repair technician, I've had my fair share of electrical fires.
All right, we have an objection. Take your objection.
Pursuant to Rule 702, this witness is not qualified to offer expert testimony on the cause of the fire.
Response.
Your Honor, this witness has laid the foundation that she has experience with electrical fires and she has the knowledge to describe what she was smelling and what she, as an mechanic and repair technician, the experience and knowledge that she has about that specific area of expertise.
Response, Your Honor?
You may.
This witness's main occupation and job at the Big Cat Temple is to clean cages, and for her to offer expert testimony based on the cause of the fire would make her rely on scientific evidence based on the cause of the fire, which she's not qualified to do so.
Well, I'll sustain the objection, and as to this witness testifying as to the cause of the fire, she may testify as to what she smelled based on her life experience, and but I will sustain the objection as to her testifying as to the cause of the fire.
Now, Ms. O'Neill, you said that it smelled like burning plastic, and in the past, when you'd smelled burning plastic in regards to a fire, what did that mean in the past?
In the past, it meant that it was this burning plastic smell, you know, kind of metallic. You know what I mean?
And what was the cause of those fires that you'd previously smelled?
Just any type of electrical fires, you know, electrical wiring, those types of things.
Now, Ms. Minow, I'd like you to look at Exhibit 9, which is on page 52 of the case materials. Can you identify this, please?
Right, so this is a picture of our average, you know, standard cages for the big cats.
And is this a fair and accurate depiction of the sanctuary's cage?
Well, I would say so.
And this is what the cages looked like in April and May of 2020?
That's right, same size, same material. No differences you can see with the physical eye.
Now, were there any differences between other cages at the sanctuary? And this one specifically?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Your Honor, at this time, we offer Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Opposing counsel has failed to lay proper foundation as to this exhibit, specifically regarding who took this picture and the authenticity of the picture and when it was taken.
Response.
Your Honor, we were offering this as it is a depiction of a cage at the sanctuary, and the specificities of who took the picture were not relevant to its admissibility in this way, as we are showing the cage and what they look like and the fact that they're similar.
Response, Your Honor?
You may.
No testimony has been offered verifying that this picture is even a picture of a cage at the Big Cat Temple. We don't know who took this picture or when it was taken.
Brief response, Your Honor.
You may.
As this witness worked at the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary, she's able to describe and recognize what the cages look like at the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary, able to identify them and describe them. And that is what she did with this picture, establishing that it was a cage at the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary, which she has knowledge to do.
I'll overrule the objection. The exhibit is admitted.
Now, Ms. Manul, can you just show that picture and say what experience you have with cleaning cages like this?
Right. So these are part of my everyday duties, just something that I have to do. And let me tell you this, it's pretty difficult, all right?
And how difficult was it cleaning a cage like this?
Well, if you see these tiny little bars, I have to get in between each of them, and these dirt floors, I mean, that does not make it any easier. And the hot sun just makes everything stick to it. Let me tell you this, it's not my favorite job.
And how often do you clean the cages during the night?
Clean the cages at night. Now that's like asking me to boil an ocean. It ain't gonna happen. I mean, it's already hard enough to do with my eyes working right during the day, but at night, we both know that's crazy talk.
All right, Ms. Manul, what do you know about Mr. Bazaar's boat?
Well, I know Bazaar loved that boat with his whole heart, and he would take it out on these trips for around 3 to 4 days. It had a desalinator on board and knee purr. You know, that kind of sounds like a cat hiccuping. I kind of like that.
And Ms. Manul, you said the boat had a desalinator. How possible was it to live on the boat from a technical standpoint?
Well, the desalinator separated the salt and the seawater, so Bazaar had something to drink. And Bazaar would keep a couple of cans of grub on the boat along with safety supplies. I mean, the man was set, if I say so myself.
No more questions, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
All right.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Ms. Manul, on the morning of April 30th, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI sent all of the employees away for long supply runs that evening, correct?
You got that right.
You were sent to the steers and meat processing plant, which was 3 hours away, correct?
That's right.
And you left the sanctuary at 6:30 p.m., right?
That's right.
And you didn't get back until 1:30 a.m., correct?
It was a long night, let me tell you that.
Yes, you were gone for a total of 7 hours, isn't that right?
That's right.
And when you returned to the sanctuary at 1:30 a.m., you didn't go to bed, did you?
No, I had to drop off the cat for the grub for the cats. I mean, I can't be the only one eating, right?
Yes, so you went to the meat processing room and you entered through the north side, correct?
That's right.
But when you went in the room, it looked like the room had already been used a few hours earlier, correct?
I would say so.
And it smelled like the meat grinders had already been used?
I would say so.
Ms. Manul, now I'd like to talk about the fire that happened in Pardalis Jacobitis' shed. You testified earlier that it smelled like an electrical fire, correct?
That's right.
But Ms. Manul, your main occupation of 4.5 years is to clean cages, correct?
Clean cages, grind stuff up, you know, get meat.
Yes, you don't have any experience in determining the cause of fires, correct?
Well, if I have to deal with electrical wiring, then I have my experience, you know, in the background.
Directing you back to my question, you don't have any experience in determining the cause of fires, much less arson, correct?
I mean, that's right.
Ms. Manul, isn't it true that only 2 people had keys to Ms. Jacobitis' shed?
That's right, Jacko and Bazaar.
Yes. And Ms. Manul, isn't it true that you are the primary cage cleaner at the sanctuary?
I would say so. Like I said, not my favorite job.
And SYLVESTRIS almost never helps with the cage cleaning, even when no one else is around, correct?
That's true, but when I forgot to replace batteries, he would do that. She would do that for me.
Directing you back to my question, when no one else is around, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI never cleans the cages, correct?
She just didn't really want to do it. That's right.
And Ms. Manul, you did not clean the cat cages before you left for your supply run on April 30th, did you?
Not that day, but I mean, I do it pretty frequently otherwise.
Finally, Ms. Manul, you haven't heard from Mr. Bazaar since April 30th, correct?
That's right.
In fact, the last time you saw Mr. Bazaar alive was before all of the employees left for their supply runs given to them by the defendant, correct?
He was at dinner. That's right.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, briefly, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Manul, what's the condition of the meat usually processed in that processing room you talked about on cross?
Partly butchered. I mean, that means that the blood is drained and everything like that. It's not like we get a fresh animal and then we process it or something.
So what would have happened if you tried to process freshly dead carcasses?
I mean, blood everywhere.
I think we have an objection.
Yes,
Ms.
Your Honor.
Ross?
Need for personal knowledge. Miss Manula is the primary cage cleaner at the sanctuary. She's been holding that job for 4.5 years. She does not have the personal knowledge required to testify as to what was needed to process meat.
Brief response, Your Honor.
You may.
As this witness previously said, she's a senior maintenance and repair technician at the Big Cat Temple Sanctuary, and she has knowledge of what needs to be done and what is done in the meat processing room, specific knowledge of what is done in that room.
I'll overrule the objection.
All right, I'll ask my question again. What would have happened if you tried to process freshly dead carcasses in the meat processing room?
I mean, blood everywhere. It would have been a huge mess. Another job that I wouldn't have wanted.
No more questions, Your Honor. Pass the witness.
All right. Recross?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Yes, Your
Or-
Honor. Excuse me.
No, go ahead.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time, the defense calls SYLVESTRIS DIARDI to the stand. Please introduce yourself to the jury. Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize. May I have 1 minute to change my?
Yeah, yes, of course.
I'm ready, Your Honor.
All right, you may
Please
proceed.
introduce yourself to the jury, Ms. DIARDI.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is SYLVESTRIS DIARDI. I'm 28 years old, and I live and work at the Big Cat Temple here in TEXOMA.
How long have you worked at the temple?
For about 2 years now.
And what was your relationship like with Mr. Very Bizarre?
We were very close. I mean, he was like a father to me.
How did you develop this close relationship?
Well, you know, we were friendly boss co-worker type relationship, but then something happened that really brought us together. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I saved his life. There was one day that Barry went into a cat cage, no protection, no weapons, typical Barry, and the cat pounced, you know, like they usually do. And I didn't even think about it. I just ran in, and long story short, we both got out alive, except for, you know, a couple of scrapes and bruises. After that, our relationship really blossomed.
How so?
Well, you know, we became very close, father-daughter almost, and he also changed his will so that I would be the beneficiary of it.
Did this kind of attack, like the one that happened to Mr. Bizarre, did it happen often?
Oh yeah, you know, working with big cats isn't exactly a safe job. Okay, they're finicky animals. They can turn on a dime and pounce at any time. You know, attacks like that happen so often. I only really remember, you know, the big severe cases, you know, like that trainer that was killed at TEXOMA Zoo by its tiger. Oof.
Would you recognize an article about that event if I were to show it to you?
Yes, I would.
All right, Ms. DIARDI, I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit 8, which has already been admitted.
All right.
Would you mind reading? So what is this?
This is an article about the tiger attack at TEXOMA Zoo.
Right. Would you mind reading the second line of the second paragraph for us?
Sure. Steve was one of the best trainers we've ever had, said Nadia Jurek. He had raised Tinkerbell from birth, and they had one of the strongest bonds I'd ever seen between a human and a big cat. There have been a few times when Steve had been scratched up by a Tinkerbell, but that is pretty common for big cats.
Right. So we've heard from Detective Leo today that you had scratches on you when you were originally questioned. Why was this?
Well, I got scratched up a few days before that by one of our big cats. And like it says right here in this article, I mean, that happens all the time.
We've also heard testimony from Serval Arata today based upon that. What was the problem with Bizarre's changed will?
Well, listen, before the will change, I never personally thought that Serval liked me very much, but after the will change, I mean, it was apparent to me that Serval hated my guts. So really, I thought I was the problem.
Let's talk about that day. On April 30th, where were you that evening?
Well, I was hanging out in Mahooch, you know, my house. And then at about 9:30, I decided I wanted to go on a run. So I texted Arata, and then I went on a run.
Do you know where everyone else was during that time?
Well, it was my understanding that Serval Arata was going to the Wiesbaum store to, you know, get some cameras, and that Manuel and Bob were driving up to Steers End to get some discounted meat for the cats. You know, we needed to restock.
Right. Was that a normal occurrence for the employees to go out and get supplies?
Sure.
Right. And on your run, did you happen to see anyone?
Well, I called out to Marine at the beginning of my runs, like I usually do.
All right. How long were you gone for on your run?
Well, I left at about 9:30 and I got back at like 11:15.
Did you notice anything when you got back?
Yeah, actually, when I came back, I saw Serval's car sitting outside.
Objection, Your Honor. My objection is to speculation. While the witness may have seen a car, she cannot conclusively identify it as Serval Arata's car, even if it was the same make and model.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
I believe on Serval Arata's testimony, this is actually consistent. They said that they returned to the sanctuary around 11. This is the same sighting of the car. Number one, that's consistent. Number two, she's not speculating. It was in front of Serval Arata's house, and she's worked with her for 2 years. She knows what his car looks like.
I'll overrule the objection.
So you said you saw Serval Arata's car. Did you notice anything else?
Yeah, I heard the machinery going off in the meat processing room, and I thought that was a little weird, a little surprising, because I didn't think that the crew would be back with the meat for hours.
All right, so you saw Serval Arata's car. Did you see anybody else, like maybe Kip and Bob's truck?
No, I only saw Serval's car.
When, if at all, did you see Bizarre that evening?
Well, I saw him at dinner, and then after that, I didn't see him at all.
Was that unusual to go the evening without seeing your boss?
No, I mean, sometimes we went hours, even days without seeing Barry. I didn't think anything of it.
What do you mean?
Well, he's a very eccentric man, and, he often spoke about sailing off to the islands and going to find his wife on the astral plane. So very eccentric man.
Well, had Bizarre taken previous unannounced trips before?
Yes, I believe he has.
Based on your observations, when did you see Mr. Bizarre usually take out his boat?
I mean, to me, it really seemed like he would take it out whenever he wanted to, any time of day, really.
And being as close as you were, did Bizarre ever mention anything about wanting to leave the temple?
Yeah, actually. A couple of weeks before Bizarre's disappearance, he confided in me that he wanted to sail and get away from it all.
Are you aware of the path of the typhoon from the night of April 30th?
I am aware of it now. I wasn't aware that night, but I was made aware a couple of days after it happened.
Right. Would you recognize a map of its path if I were to show it to you?
Yes, I would.
All right, Ms. DIARDI, I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit 2, page 45 of the case files, what has already been admitted. If you'd mind showing that to the jury, please. All right, would you describe where you last saw Bizarre's boat?
Right, yeah, it was usually docked here at the Big Cat Temple in the bay.
Right. Would you describe, based on the map, the path that the storm took in relation to where you last saw it?
Yeah, so it was supposed to head on up this way and follow this here red line and just go straight off into the ocean, but turned right here and it passed in between the bay and the islands. So it came a lot closer to us than it was supposed to.
Thank you. Were you expecting the storm to turn?
No, I had no idea.
Were there any clear signs at the temple that made you expect the storm to turn?
No.
Have you taken out Mr. Bizarre's boat before, Ms. DIARDI?
Well, Barry was teaching me how to sail, but I would only ever take it out with him. I'm not nearly experienced enough to sail on my own.
All right. Did you hear the testimony about the blood evidence today?
I believe I heard something about it, yes.
Would you tell the jury why your blood may have been found in the Y-Cat cage?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. I get scratched up in those cages. I get scratched, I bleed, it gets on the cages. It's not surprising that they found evidence that they can't date. So.
And at the temple, you said it was part of your job to feed the cats. Did the temple ever struggle to purchase meat?
Well, we often bought meat, past the sell-by date. It saved a pretty penny, but, we needed that money.
Right. And we've also heard from Pardalis Jacobidis that their footage was destroyed in some fire. Based on that, what do you know about the fire?
Well, what I heard in court today is that the fire was ruled not arson or inconclusive or something. And also, I've seen Pardala smoke cigarettes in bed.
Ms. DIARDI, what would happen if you are found guilty today?
Well, I could go to prison. I mean, I have a job I love, free food, free housing. I mean, I would never do anything to risk any of that. I never asked for any of this. I mean, I would be devastated.
What do you mean when you say you never asked for this?
I mean, I never asked Barry to put me on that will. I never asked for any of it.
What would happen, who would receive Bazar's estate if this were to happen?
It's my understanding that Serval Arata will receive everything.
But that being said, who is also testifying against you today?
Serval Arata.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass this witness.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Ms. DIARDI, you were the sole primary beneficiary of Mr. Bazar's will on April 30th, 2020, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Now, at this time, you had only been the primary beneficiary for around 7 months. Is that correct?
Yeah, not long.
Isn't it true that in the past 6 years, Mr. Bazar has changed his will 4 times?
Well, I've only been at the temple for 2 years, but I guess he's changed it once or twice, yes?
To your knowledge, he has changed his will several times in the past. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Question calls for speculation. This witness just testified that she's only been at the temple for 2 years. She doesn't know how many times it was changed before she started working there.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
I asked the witness, to your knowledge, has his will been changed in the past? If the witness was working at the temple for 2 years, that qualifies as the past. And if she doesn't know, she can say so.
I'll overrule the objection. The witness can testify if she knows.
Ms. DIARDI, I'll re-ask the question. To your knowledge, Mr. Bazar has changed his will several times in the past. Is that correct?
Yes, I have heard that.
Ms. DIARDI, isn't it true that you have a gambling habit?
Objection, Your Honor. Unduly prejudicial and inadmissible character evidence.
Response.
As to unduly prejudicial, Your Honor, if the witness had a habit of gambling, she would need money to support this habit, and this goes directly to motive. As to character evidence, Your Honor, gambling is not a character trait, it is a habit.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
As for the relevance, saying this witness has debt is one thing that I understand that is counsel's, what is she referring to as motive, but bringing up gambling is extremely prejudicial and irrelevant. It is not necessary. It is one thing to say this witness has debt, but we live in the Bible Belt, and that is an extremely prejudicial phrase. And as for character evidence, it can actually be a trait or an act that that opposing counsel is trying to prove that my witness acted in accordance with, and therefore is inadmissible character evidence is an extremely prejudicial.
Brief response, Your Honor.
You may.
The fact that the witness might have needed money to support an ongoing habit such as gambling further adds to her motive, as opposed to if she just needed money to support a one-time purchase. As for character evidence, Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 404B2, prior bad acts such as gambling are admissible to prove motive.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. Witness may testify, answer the question.
I'll re-ask the question. Ms. DIARDI, isn't it true that you have a gambling habit?
Yeah, I mean, I placed a few bets here and there.
And you owe thousands of dollars in gambling debts, don't you?
About 2,000, couple thousand. It's not that much really. And I'm on an installment plan.
Ms. DIARDI, isn't it true that in the week prior to April 30th, you and Mr. Bazar had a disagreement?
Yeah, misunderstanding, but it was no big deal.
If Mr. Bazar would have changed his will on April 30th, you would have had to pay your gambling debts completely on your own. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Question calls for speculation. If Mr. Bazar were to change his will on this day, that is extremely speculative. This witness cannot testify to that.
Response, Your Honor.
You may.
My question was, if Mr. Bazar changed his will on April 30th, what would the witness have to do with her money? Would the witness have other money to pay her gambling debts other than her own? The witness can testify to her own financial state. The question is not, would Mr. Bazar change his will on April 30th?
May I respond, Your Honor?
Well, I'll overrule the objection.
I'll re-ask the question, Ms. DIARDI. If Mr. Bizarre would have changed his will on April 30th, you would have to pay your gambling debts completely on your own. Is that correct?
Well, first, I don't know if I would inherit any money by inheriting the Big Cat Temple. Second, I plan to pay it completely on my own. I'm on an installment plan and I don't pay rent and I don't pay for food. I'm completely fine. And third, I have no idea.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
May I respond?
Well, I'll sustain as the witness has already answered the question. Ask another question.
Ms. DIARDI, I would like to discuss your job at the Big Cat Temple. You were in charge of feeding the 15 tigers that y'all kept there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Now, before you fed the tigers, you had to process their meat, didn't you?
No, typically I waited on all the meat.
Ms. DIARDI, you would process tigers' meat in the meat processing room labeled meat processing on the green building on Exhibit 1. Is that correct?
First of all, I would not process any tigers. I would process meat for the tigers to eat. And I had to wait on meat processing to feed the cats.
Ms. DIARDI, please direct your attention to Exhibit 1 on page 44 of the case materials and let me know when you were there.
I'm right here.
Ms. DIARDI, there is a green building labeled meat processing on the north side of Exhibit 1. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And Barry Bizarre's house is directly to the west of the meat processing room. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess they were close to each other. We're pretty tight packed there.
Ms. DIARDI, isn't it true that there is a large roll-up door on the north side of the meat processing room?
Sure, that's how we unload stuff.
It's very easy for you to unload carcasses into the meat processing room through this large roll-up door, isn't it?
Animal carcasses, yes.
Now, typically these animal carcasses that you would unload would be up to 5 feet in length. Is that correct?
Sure, they vary in size, but yes.
And they would weigh approximately around 70 pounds. Is that correct?
Again, it varies, but sure.
And Ms. DIARDI, once you would drag these carcasses into the meat processing room, you would cut them up with a bandsaw. Is that correct?
We at the Big Cat Temple would, but that processing the meat wasn't a part of my daily job. But yes, that is how people usually did it at the temple.
Ms. DIARDI, is it your testimony that you were not in charge of feeding the big cats at the sanctuary?
I am in charge of feeding the big cats at the sanctuary, but you asked me about processing the meat, and that's two completely different things. I had to wait on meat processing.
Ms. DIARDI, do you remember giving a fact statement prior to this trial?
Of course.
Did you swear to tell the truth in this statement?
Yes.
Ms. DIARDI, please turn to your fact statement. Are you there, Ms. DIARDI?
What? Where?
At your fact statement.
Yes, I'm here.
Is that your signature on page 28 of the case materials?
Yes.
Is that yours? Is this a truthful and accurate copy of your fact statement?
I believe so, yes.
Please direct your attention to page 2, lines 41 of your fact statement on page 26 of the case materials. Read along silently while I read aloud. We to bring the carcass pieces, which could be 3 to 5 feet in length and weigh up to 70 pounds, to our meat processing room at the sanctuary, where we use the bandsaw to cut them into pieces to be fed to the cats. You can see that meat processing room on the map of the sanctuary in Exhibit 1. We'd back a truck up on the north side of the building because there's a roll-up door and raised platform that makes unloading super easy. Ms. DIARDI, did I read
Your Honor, improper impeachment, as no inconsistent testimony was given. My witness simply stated that in her everyday tasks in her job, meat processing was not one of them. There was no inconsistent testimony given.
Brief response, Your Honor?
You may.
In her fact statement, the witness specifically testified to what she would do. When she said we, I is included in we, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
I believe we is more the figurative we. If you would keep reading, there's actually context that we is the figurative we as the Big Cat Temple. As this witness was a supervisor of the people who actually did this task, she has never testified that this was part of her everyday tasks, and it wasn't. As seen, there was no inconsistent testimony.
Brief response, Your Honor?
Well, I'll overrule the objection.
Ms. DIARDI, did I read your fact statement correctly?
Sure.
Ms. DIARDI, after you would bring these carcasses into the meat processing room, you would cut them into pieces with a bandsaw. Is that correct?
Yes, I didn't do it every day. It was not part of my daily job, but yes, I supervised it.
You supervised these carcasses being brought to the tigers' cages.
Sure, yeah, I was the one who fed them.
You were the one who fed the tigers?
Yes.
And so after the tigers were fed, you would bring these remains back to the meat processing room.
Yes.
And you would grind the remains into fertilizer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Ms. DIARDI, to be clear, feeding the tigers was part of your job. Is that correct?
I have never said otherwise.
And Mr. Manul, he was in charge of cleaning the cat cages.
She was, yes.
And Mr. Arata was in charge of keeping the sanctuary's records.
I believe so, yes.
But you were in charge of making sure the tigers had food. Is that correct?
Yes, I did feed them.
Mr. DIARDI, Ms. DIARDI, on the night of April 30th, there were 4 people besides yourself living at the sanctuary. Is that correct?
I believe so.
4 people besides yourself and Mr. Bizarre, excuse me. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And these people were 3 employees and Pardalis Jacobaitis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. DIARDI, isn't it true that the night of April 30th, 2020 was a Thursday night?
Yeah.
So you knew that Pardalis Jacobaitis would be gone that night. Is that correct?
Of course, Pardalis and the crew always goes out for drinks on Thursdays and things like that.
And on that same night, you sent Kit Manul and the part-time employee to a location 3 hours away. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, that particular plant was closing down. We needed to get there to get, restock meat for the cats.
3 hours away, correct?
Yeah, that particular plant was closing down. They were having a sale.
And Ms. DIARDI, you sent Mr. Arata to a location an hour and a half away. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. The Wiesbaum store.
And Ms. DIARDI, after you had sent all these employees away, you were alone with Mr. Bizarre at the sanctuary, weren't you?
Yeah, I didn't plan it to be like that, but I believe I was.
Ms. DIARDI, all the meat processing equipment was working that night. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I didn't exactly check on it or anything.
The bandsaws were still in the meat processing room?
I don't understand why that wouldn't be.
And the grinders were still working?
Again, I haven't heard anything otherwise.
Ms. DIARDI, you testified that you went on a run and got back around 11:15 p.m. Now, after you went on a run, you went for swimming in the TEXOMA Bay. Is that correct?
Yeah, I took a dip in the bay.
You characterized this swim as just a dip. Is that right?
Yeah.
Ms. DIARDI, did you take a dip for 45 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
You have sailed on Barry Bizarre's boat several times in the past. Is that correct?
With him, yes.
Ms. DIARDI, if Mr. Bizarre were to die on that night, who would inherit all his entire estate according to his will?
If he were to die that night?
Yes, ma'am. If Barry Bizarre were to die that night, who would inherit his entire estate according to his current will?
His current will, I believe I'm the beneficiary.
Ms. DIARDI, you knew Mr. Bizarre was not at the sanctuary the next day, didn't you?
Yes, we couldn't find him.
Isn't it true that Pardalis Jacobaitis has interviewed you on camera several times before?
Yeah, everyone at the Big Cat Temple participated in the documentary.
And she kept her films in a shed on site at the sanctuary. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know where else she would keep them.
Ms. DIARDI, you knew that the fire alarms in her shed were so old, they didn't even beep when the batteries were disconnected. Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't know they weren't working, but I knew that they were pretty old. Serval bought some old ones.
Ms. DIARDI, you've been convicted of a felony offense within the past 10 years, haven't you?
Objection, Your Honor. Inadmissible character evidence and unduly prejudicial. This directly falls under inadmissible character evidence as a previous conviction. And for a third objection, Your Honor, it's irrelevant.
Brief response, Your Honor.
You may.
Pursuant to Rule 609, subsection A1B, felony convictions of defendants in criminal cases are admissible to impeach their character for truthfulness. Ms. DIARDI is testifying on her own behalf in this case, and her truthfulness is highly probative.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
I don't understand how this witness's possible history with law enforcement has anything to do with her truthfulness or untruthfulness. This was over 7 years ago and is extremely prejudicial.
Brief response, Your Honor.
Well, I'll overrule the objection.
I'll re-ask the question, Ms. DIARDI. You've been convicted of a felony offense within the last 10 years. Is that correct?
Yes, different
This
person.
felony, and this felony offense was for burglary. Is that correct?
Yes, very dark time in my life, ma'am.
Ms. DIARDI, you burglarized homes to support your drug habit, didn't you?
Objection, Your Honor. Unduly prejudicial. This witness has been rehabilitated, and this was over 7 years ago. A drug habit is extremely prejudicial and may sway the jury on this witness's character. And it's also
Overrule.
Ms. DIARDI, you burglarized homes to support your drug habit, didn't you?
It was a very dark time in my life and I was very young, but yes.
Isn't it true that the last home you burglarized burned to the ground?
I have no idea how that happened.
Your
but-
Honor, I raise a different objection. Inadmissible character evidence pursuant to Rule 404A1, prohibited uses include using a past action to prove that this witness has acted in accordance therewith presently, and that falls directly under what opposing counsel is attempting to do.
Brief response, Your Honor.
You may.
Pursuant to Rule 404B, in order for character evidence to be deemed inadmissible, specific acts must be offered to prove a character or character trait. Your Honor, burning a house down is not a character trait.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Opposing counsel just responded earlier that they were attacking the witness's character for truthfulness. That is very much a trait that she is trying to demonstrate in this witness and falls directly under 404A1 and is inadmissible.
Brief response, Your Honor.
I'll overrule the objection.
Ms. DIARDI, I'll re-ask the question. Isn't it true that the last home you burglarized burned to the ground?
Okay.
I mean, I have no idea.
You are out of time.
I apologize, Your Honor. On my chat, it said we had 20 seconds left. I apologize. I will recite.
Well, I think you are out of time. Okay, so
Your Honor, she still has 12 seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. I apologize.
Yes, Your Honor, that's all right. Ms. DIARDI, isn't it true that the last home you burglarized burned to the ground?
Again, I have no idea how that happened, but that is, I guess, what happened. I mean, I don't know how it happened.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Objection, Your Honor. Opposing counsel is out of time.
All right, well, I'll overrule the objection, and I believe you are out of time. So,
Yes, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. All right, Ms. DIARDI, I'd like to direct your attention. It was already been admitted as Exhibit 7. Would you mind reading April 29th for us, 7:45 a.m.?
Okay. 7:45 a.m. Meat count is very low, only fed big cats in northernmost 5 cages, waiting on meat processing.
Right, so what does that waiting on meat processing mean?
It means that it was not a part of my daily job and I had to wait for meat to be processed to feed the meat.
Did you even, as a supervisor, did you stand over your employees' shoulders and watch them process the meat, ma'am?
I was a supervisor and I did see it being done a couple of times, but I didn't stand over their shoulder every single time Kip had to process meat for the big cats. That is crazy.
Opposing counsel keeps bringing up this debt you owe. How much do you actually owe?
I owe about $2,000.
Right, and how much do you make per month at the temple, ma'am?
Well, I make $550 a week, which is $2,200 a month.
Right, so why aren't you worried about this debt?
Because I can pay it off in a month or two on my installment plan. It is not a concern of mine at all.
No further questions, Your Honor. I pass this witness.
All right, recross.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All the witness may step down, and does the defense rest?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense rests.
All right. You all will take a minute before your closing argument. Both sides ready to proceed with closing arguments. Ms. Merrill,
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
you may.
May it please the court, members of the jury. On April 30th, 2020, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, the defendant, had a serious gambling debt. In order to pay it down, Barry Bizarre would have to die. On the night Bizarre disappeared, there was only one person with the motive, one person with the opportunity, and one person with the means to commit murder, and the evidence has proven that that person was the defendant. Now, as the state in today's case, we hold the burden of proof, and we must prove that on or about April 30th, 2020, in Landry County, TEXOMA, the defendant knowingly or intentionally caused the death of Barry Bizarre beyond a reasonable doubt. All that means is that after considering the evidence in today's trial, the only reasonable conclusion is that the defendant committed murder. Now, you've heard how on April 30th, the defendant had a serious, unpaid gambling debt. As the primary beneficiary of Mr. Bizarre's will, the defendant had an inheritance to pay it down. But in the week prior to April 30th, it became clear that this inheritance was about to be taken away. So the defendant had to kill Bizarre, but she couldn't inherit if she were caught. So there couldn't be any witnesses. There couldn't be any physical evidence, not even a body. So on April 30th, 2020, the defendant created the perfect opportunity. She made sure there was not a single witness to Bizarre's disappearance. She sent them all away at night, at the same time, and to locations hours away. By the time all these witnesses had done as they were told by the defendant, she had bought herself 3.5 hours alone with Bizarre. Members of the jury, who decides what evidence is left of their crimes? Criminals do. Alone at the Big Cat Temple, this was especially easy to do. On the night of April 30th, 2020, the defendant had access to all the same tools she oversaw on a regular basis. She incapacitated Bizarre in the vicinity of the meat processing room and then disposed of his body like she would any other carcass. You've seen how the proximity of Bizarre's house to the meat processing room was very convenient. The large door on the north side of the meat processing room provided cover from anyone who might see from the marina or sanctuary grounds. After butchering the body in the very manner to which she was well accustomed, the defendant merely needed to feed the dismembered body to the white cat and grind whatever was left into fertilizer. This action was easy. It was silent. There were no significant remains to dispose of, and the body of Bizarre literally didn't even exist anymore. By her own design, the defendant ensured that any criminal investigation would be obscured and evidence would be lost. But why was the white cat's cage bleached late at night on April 30th? Why did Mr. Manul say that the meat processing room had been used late at night on April 30th? Why did Mr. Manul say that the meat grinders had been used when the defendant herself has told you they had no meat on April 30th? The only thing that was processed that night was Barry Bizarre's body. And members of the jury, the defendant had to distract from the obvious fact that while she was alone with Bizarre, he disappeared. And to that end, she piloted Bizarre's boat out under the cover of darkness. So one of two things could have happened the night of April 30th. Either the defendant murdered Bizarre, or Bizarre piloted out his own boat and drowned himself in a typhoon. But here's why that isn't possible. Bizarre would always tell someone before he left. You've heard how Bizarre would always check in with Mr. Namir before he took his boat away. Members of the jury, the only way Bizarre could have even hit the typhoon in time was if he went out that night with a suicidal mission to do so, and there's simply no evidence that Bizarre had a death wish. There is a significant difference between a defense and a distraction. The boat was used as a distraction then, and it is only a distraction now. Now consider who might have had a motive to destroy any evidence that was left. In this case, the defendant murdered to support her gambling habit, and in past cases, she's burglarized homes to support her drug habit. In 2 cases, a building burned after the crime was committed. But what's the commonality between these 2 buildings? They both contained evidence. The fire in Jacobitis is shed 3 days after Bizarre disappeared. It was not a coincidence. It was set to destroy evidence, and it did. Members of the jury, all this evidence means that on or about April 30th, 2020, in Landry County, TEXOMA, the defendant knowingly or intentionally caused the death of Barry Bizarre beyond a reasonable doubt. Don't allow the defendant to get away with murder. Find her guilty.
All right. Thank you, counsel. Mr. Reed?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense is ready to proceed.
You may proceed. Well, let's wait for the timekeeper, I guess. Okay. All right, you may proceed.
May it please the court. Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. Magic tricks are easy to fall for. With a charming magician and the tricks up their sleeve, one is left questioning their own sense of reality. But at the end of the day, the truth wins and the facade falls apart. The prosecution attempted to distract you with a story of betrayal, backstabbing, and greed. They tried to convince you that Miss DIARDI was the next Harry Houdini, vanishing Barry Bazaar in front of everyone's very eyes. But it was a total farce. A story devoid of facts. A magic trick. It is the prosecution's burden to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that is, a doubt that would make you pause in the most important of your own affairs in making a decision, that our client, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, committed murder. This means that they must have proved each element of the offense beyond any reasonable amount of doubt. They have not met their burden. Let's consider the evidence. Here is the theory presented. The prosecution claims that Barry was fed to the Y-Cat or ground up into food for the tiger, and Mr. Bazaar's boat was sent out by Miss DIARDI, after which she returned back on a dinghy. In the case of the Y-Cat, no dated forensic evidence was found around the cage. Detective Leo said so himself, nor was there any credible evidence brought forth to show that Miss DIARDI had been deliberately starving the Y-Cat. Miss DIARDI is claimed to have murdered Mr. Bazaar, grinded him up, fed him to the cat, and cleaned the entire cage. Miss DIARDI would have had to have scrubbed every single major piece of Mr. Bazaar's DNA from the sanctuary and would then have had to rush over to the boat, send it out, and use a dinghy back to shore with the exceptional timing of a criminal mastermind. The facts simply do not support this, and Miss DIARDI would have had to have been a magician to conjure all those problems away. The prosecution's running story is that Miss DIARDI is a greedy woman who killed Mr. Bazaar in order to inherit the sanctuary, but this has no basis in reality. No evidence was brought forth to show that the sanctuary was any sort of gold mine, but let's say it was. Wouldn't Arata have just as much of an incentive to manipulate the situation and blame the defendant? Arata stands to inherit the estate if our client is wrongfully convicted today, and he has some debts of his own with no way to pay them off. The state claims that Miss DIARDI is the only person to have possibly been at the sanctuary in the night of April 30th, but this is false as well. For one, Arata's alibi of being at the bar at the time in question is totally unsubstantiated, with no receipt and no witnesses to back his claim. Second, Meyer places Arata's car back at the sanctuary far earlier than he claims, calling into question the validity of Arata's entire testimony here today. Furthermore, Meyer says to have heard Miss DIARDI call out, like she had many times before when she would go on a run, leaving Arata the only person with no one to back up his alibi. Lastly, the body of the decedent. Mr. Bazaar's whereabouts are totally unknown, and so is his boat and dinghy, with Miss DIARDI saying he had been planning to sail and get away from it all, and the prosecution's own Serval Arata stating he couldn't even say if Barry Bazaar was even dead. So far, we have no motive, no murder theory, no clear person of interest, and no body. No matter what the prosecution wants you to believe, this is far more than a reasonable doubt. As the course of this trial has gone on, we have seen how the prosecution has created their elaborate narrative, but their story has a multitude of holes. No clear murder method, forensic evidence from the cage and smoke detector with no dates, and the whereabouts of the boat and even potential remains unknown. A magic trick pulled straight out of thin air. Don't fall for the illusion. At the conclusion of this trial, you will be asked a question. Did our client, SYLVESTRIS DIARDI, commit the offense of murder? And after all the evidence, or lack thereof, that you've seen today, the only reasonable response to this question is no. Don't send an innocent woman to prison. Find the defendant not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Rebuttal argument?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
The facts are that on the night the Bizarre disappeared, only one thing could have happened, and that was murder. That only one person had the motive, only one person had the opportunity, and only one person had the means, and that person was the defendant. Find her guilty. See.
All right. Does the, let's see, everybody back? Does the prosecution allege any rules violations?
No, Your Honor.
Does the defense allege any rules violations?
None, Your Honor.
All right. Okay. Members of the jury, you are retired to deliberate your verdict and complete your electronic ballots. Save it to your computer and email it to Ms. Garcia. And so I want to thank everybody. And my understanding is we will be with you all once the jury has reached a verdict.
Thank you, Judge. Here's what happens next. We're going to move all of the judges back into the judge room. They're going to complete their score sheet. You folks will stay here, and then we'll bring them back in and let them introduce themselves, and then we'll announce the winners, the winner and the runner-up of the state championship. So y'all just hang out loose here. It'll be about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll be back. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to pause the live stream and I'm trying to get it started back up for the announcement. So thank you, everybody.
Hey guys, you're all still here? Do we still have teams here? Hey, yeah, we do. There they are. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have our judges unmute and introduce themselves. I will say the name of the judge and then let them introduce themselves to you and tell you about themselves, and then we'll go into the whole reason you guys are here. Starting with Tom Goranson.
Hi, I'm Tom Goranson. I'm a 50-year lawyer this year. I started a law firm that's now known as Goranson, Bain, and Osley. I'm a state mock trial addict and been that way since last century. Can't tell you how much fun it is to be involved in this program and how great it is to be allowed the privilege to be a judge in the semifinals and the finals.
Thank you, Tom. Jim Young.
Good afternoon. My name's Jim Young. I'm a lawyer, arbitrator, mediator, and professor here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've been involved in mock trial both at high school and college levels as a judge and a coach for a very long time. And I just want you all to know I had a fabulous time watching you work this afternoon. Thank you very much for the effort.
Next, Galen G.
I'm Galen G. I'm a family lawyer in Dallas since 1999 now. And you all did great. It was fantastic watching you master the art of law already.
Megan David. You're muted, Megan.
I know. I was saying, hold on. Here I come. Hi, I'm Megan David. First of all, fantastic job. Just to have gotten this far is amazing, and y'all did not disappoint. It was one of the best rounds I've seen. Like someone said before me, I'm also a mock trial addict or a mock trial junkie, I would say. I've been involved in either doing mock trial myself or coaching or judging ever since 2006. And I just think that y'all should be very proud of yourselves. I know how much work it takes and how many hours you've put in. So congratulations either way.
Jamie Olin.
Hey everybody, I'm Jamie Olin. I practice patent litigation at a firm in downtown Dallas, and I've been judging in this competition for about the last 8 years or so. I just really want to congratulate both teams a lot, because not only did you do an amazing job in and of yourselves, but in this year and doing it over Zoom, I don't think you could have done it much better. Really great job for both teams.
Derek Mergle Rust.
Hi, my name is Derek, and I am the president of the Dallas LGBT Bar Association and an advisor to the Dallas Bar Association. I'm an attorney in Dallas that practices criminal defense and family law, and a former national team advocate for Texas Tech University. And just want to say how proud I am of the work that both teams put on. This was not only high school level, but this was something that you don't get to see very often in law school. So congratulations.
Jennifer King.
Hi, I'm Jennifer King. I'm a 20-year lawyer. I'm a partner at Burford and Rayburn here in Dallas, and I'm also the president of the Dallas Women Lawyers Association this year. And y'all did a fantastic job today, and it was a pleasure to watch you.
Javier Perez.
Yes, how are y'all doing? I'm Javier Perez. I'm an employment litigator here in Dallas. I am president of the Dallas Hispanic Bar Association, and just want to congratulate you guys for excellent presentations, and really enjoyed the individual touches y'all put on finding your own voices. I think that's really important going forward. So congratulations to both teams.
Marissa Hatchett.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marissa Hatchett. I am the president of the J.L. Turner Legal Association, which is the African American Bar Association, part of the Dallas Bar Association. And I'm also a sexual assault prosecutor at the Dallas District Attorney's Office. So I thoroughly enjoyed this fact pattern, seeing prosecution and defense. Both teams did an absolutely amazing job. I think y'all did better than some people that are currently practicing. So congratulations, everybody.
And last, we didn't get to High-T Simmons. Go ahead, High-T.
All right. Heidi Simmons, last but not least.
You're not
I've
last.
been practicing law 37 year,s a quarter of a century of that was as an active trial appellate attorney. And currently a municipal judge for 3 cities and in Texas. You can do that. We're kind of like the old circuit judges that the John Wayne was always waiting to come to town and give justice. But anyway, you did an outstanding job. I can tell you now that from my trial experience that you were far better today than I was in my first trial many, many years ago. So congratulations on a job well done.
And last but not least, Mr. President, Aaron Tobin.
Thank you so much, Steve. My name is Aaron Tobin, and I'm a civil trial lawyer at the Dallas firm Condon Tobin. I've been practicing trial law for 20 years now, and as Steve mentioned, I'm the current president of the Dallas Bar Association. On behalf of the Dallas Bar Association, I just want to thank all of the participants, all of the judges, all of the coaches, as well as all of the schools that participated in this wonderful competition this year. One of the reasons I have been coming back to judge mock trials since 2006, one of the many reasons is because as a trial lawyer, I always learn something from each of you when I watch you. I have 2 trials coming up in April, and I'm going to be using several things that I learned from you today during those trials. The advocacy was just outstanding. You should all be very proud of yourself. And on behalf of the Dallas Bar Association, thank you so much for your participation and your commitment.
Okay, so we've got a few things to talk about before we get to the reason that you guys are here. First of all, one last time, need to thank the vice chairs of this committee. We have 4 of them here today. Taylor Robertson, Allison Rapon, Brian Benitez, and Kevin Anders have this weekend in particular pulled yeoman duty and done great work for us. And of course, Melissa Garcia, who has been ably assisted this weekend by Yadenia Hinojos, have kept the rooms running and the live stream going, and it has been absolutely a lot better than we thought it was going to be. And like I keep saying, and I hope we never ever have to do this again. We have a surprise for you guys. We added about an hour or half an hour before the competition a new award, two new awards: Outstanding Advocate and Outstanding Witness in the final. And so those, we had the judges vote on those, and then we had the committee break the tie. And you will be receiving a plaque, and there is a $500 scholarship that goes along with it as well. So the outstanding witness in the final, getting 6 of the 11 votes, was Arden Carruthers. And the outstanding advocate in a very, very close race, the outstanding advocate in the final was Abby Chapman. Now I'm going to turn it over to Justice Myers. I want to tell you guys that 11 ballots, 6 one way, 5 the other, separated by 1 ballot point. When you add all the points up, this was as close as any final that we've ever seen. I think my ballot was 3 or 4 points, and it was very, very close. The way, and Lana will explain how we do this in mock trial. And I'm gonna turn it over to Lana. Go ahead, Lana.
Well, first of all, I just want to say both teams did such an outstanding job under really challenging circumstances. I'm just really honored to participate in this final round and preside over it. You know, you mastered the Zoom. I've been judging mock trials since the mid-'80s and have been involved with mock trials since, since that time, judging in some way. So it is my pleasure now, and please join me in congratulating our second place winner, Team B, Veritas Classical Academy. And our first place winner is Team M, Booker T. Washington.
Congratulations to both teams. You both did very, very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We love this competition so much.
Congratulations.
To the Veritas team, I'll let you guys know that your first round was the and Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the 4-1, wasn't it?
Round 1 was
the semifinal was the 4 versus the 1.
Yes, you were the 4 seed, and
you were the 4 seed.
You upset the number 1 seed,
which is really, pretty good.
Really impressive.
And great work by both schools. I'm going to stick around for a little while. I do want to Taylor and I do want to chat with Team M and let them know what happens next. Team B, you're welcome to listen in on this. Melissa, you can stop recording if you'd like. And
I'm going to stop recording and end the live stream. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you.
Yes, well done.
Thank you. Thank you.